2 for the A1 at Five Ways Corner because of an accident. There are queues from junction 4 at Edgware, and on the M3 in Hampshire there's a lane closed southbound for repairs at junction 14 for the M27 causing queues.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
My next guest's book will certainly provoke you. Lord Sarch's book, Orgasm, probes 21 such ideas, chapter by chapter, in a stimulating reading experience, covering subjects from geopolitics and etiquette to the economy and the afterlife. Maurice Sarchi argues that rigorous thinking can create a blissful mental experience.
Well, the title is Orgasm, and I try to investigate the question of whether it's possible for there to be an orgasm of the mind which is equal in bliss to a physical orgasm. That's very interesting. And theoretically, the way that arises, I'll finish. Theoretically, the way that arises is by addressing conflicting ideas and then for there to be a revelation of true wisdom. That's the purpose of the book. And I think you can sum up British politics completely in 2 sentences. You'll understand very well, Michael. Conservatives are efficient but cruel. Labour is caring but incompetent. So you can see there that if you have a situation in which the Conservative Party turns out to be, in people's opinion, inefficient and cruel, well, then you're likely to have a very bad election result, which is exactly what we just did. And why?
So you have quite a lot to say to Kemi Badenoch. I mean, the first thing you would say to her would be, read my book, please, I suppose.
Well, that's absolutely the first thing. It's a perfect Christmas present for her to give, as I was saying. So that's number one. So after she's done that, well, then her level of wisdom, which I'm sure is already very high, will be greatly increased, and she'll be able to address the complex, provocative, controversial issues aired in this book.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Morning, 9:30 on Monday, the 25th of November, live across the UK. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Eddie Costello.
Storm Bert leaving a trail of destruction with hundreds of warnings still in place and at least 5 deaths reported since the storm hit.
We are live here in South Wales in what the First Minister of Wales describes as absolutely devastating scenes, hundreds of homes and businesses flooded.
The clamour for a general election. A petition accusing the Labour government of going back on its promises is edging towards 2 million signals. Buyer's remorse?
Assisted dying bill. MPs backing the bill claim they have enough support for it to pass, but could a split in the cabinet cause chaos?
The Wicked Stepmother, who a new royal documentary causes outrage with its labelling of Queen Camilla, no less.
I met Harry at a polo match. I asked him about Camilla and his face darkened and he said, everyone treats her like a goddess, but in fact she's the wicked stepmother.
Band-Aid at 40. 4 decades since the song Do They Know It's Christmas first stormed the charts, and all these years later, it's still making headlines. Yeah, very controversial, Band-Aid 40 this year. Ed Sheeran saying that if he'd have been asked, he would have said he didn't want his voice on the track because his understanding of the track has changed in the last 10 years.
I'm old enough to remember it put poverty in Africa on the map in a way we hadn't seen for a very long time. All sorts of people got involved and millions were sent around the world, not just from Britain, from all around the world. Now, whether Ethiopia used that money wisely or not is another matter, but I think it was the right thing at the time.
Yes, well, Bob Geldof says, despite what you might think about the song, hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people, have been pulled out of poverty as a result of Band-Aid. Let us know what you think on that one, gbnews.com/yoursay. Now let's have a look at the news bulletin with Tatiana Sanchez.
Ellie, thank you very much and good morning. The top stories from the GB Newsroom. Storm Bert is bringing further widespread disruption with public transport affected after devastating flooding over the weekend. Great Western Railway says it suspended services on all key routes due to flooding and fallen trees. The operator's network runs between London Paddington and both South West England and South Wales. There are still hundreds of flood alerts in place and a major incident declared in South Wales. Hundreds of homes were left underwater, roads were turned into rivers, and winds of up to 82 miles per hour were recorded across parts of the UK. Over 300 flights have been cancelled so far. It is only the second storm of the season. In other news, bar staff will be trained to deal with incidents of drink spiking under government plans to tackle violence against women and girls. Number 10 announced that workers in the nighttime economy will be instructed on how to spot and prevent cases, as well as help collect evidence under a new pilot programme to be rolled out from next month. The plan is for up to 10,000 bar staff across the country to be trained by spring next year. Further details will be discussed at a meeting in Downing Street today between the Prime Minister and chief constables, transport bosses and industry executives. Sir Keir Starmer has reiterated plans for spiking to become a specific offence, as he hopes a change will give people the confidence to come forward. Spiking is already a crime that falls under assault, but campaigners say creating a specific offence will help stamp it out by showing a zero-tolerance approach. London's Metropolitan Police said reports of spiking increased by 13% last year. The government is reportedly split over the assisted dying bill ahead of its vote in Parliament on Friday. It follows a string of senior Labour figures coming out against the motion, including former Prime Minister Gordon Brown, as well as cabinet ministers, including the Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood, Health Secretary Wes Streeting, the Education Secretary and Science Secretary Peter Kyle. But while the government may be split on the issue, MPs sponsoring the bill are confident there is enough support for it to pass through. And Davina McCall says her short-term memory is a bit remiss as she recovers from brain tumour surgery. The TV presenter looked visibly emotional as she posted a video of herself in bed, updating her Instagram followers on her condition, saying it had been a mad time. She expressed an enormous, heartfelt thank you to people who'd messaged after the 57-year-old revealed this month she had a benign brain tumour, a colloid cyst, which she described as very rare.
I think when something like this happens, I just feel so grateful. I've always been grateful. I've been really lucky in my life, but I feel unbelievably grateful right now. So thanks for everything, all of you. I'm on the mend, I'm resting, I'm sleeping loads, and I feel really good.
And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good morning and welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom live across the UK on GB News. I'm Andrew Pierce and this is the fabulous Ellie Costello.
Oh, it's good to be with you, as always.
Is. Very nice.
Now, this weekend, lots of wind, lots of rain, lots of snow. Did you suffer with it over the weekend?
I did.
My bins.
Sleet,
where you were.
Yeah. And high winds. I'm in North London. The part of North London we're in, trees, a lot of trees. Oh, my word. You walk... branches, boughs, big lumps of trees have come off. It's very disruptive for traffic.
Yeah, I tried to go for a walk yesterday and there were
risky
panels down and I was actually very concerned going past building sites that something was going to come off.
Yeah.
You do need to take heed if you're out and about.
But we were lucky compared to Wales and Scotland and other parts of the country.
Absolutely, because Storm Bert has ravaged certain parts of the country this weekend with at least 5 deaths suspected to have been caused by the storm.
200 flood alerts are still in place and a major incident declared in South Wales, so it's not over just yet.
Well, over 300 flights have been cancelled so far, and bearing in mind, this is only the second storm of the season.
Let's talk to GB News reporter Adam Cherry, who joins us from the eye of the storm yesterday, at least Pontypridd in the South Wales. Adam, are they recovering, mopping up, or is there more to come?
Yeah, morning, guys. It's a little bit calmer this morning than it has been over the weekend. Just even getting here was very difficult, as you said, or as you heard during the news bulletins. A lot of rail closures, and a lot of difficulty with travelling. So just to get here took us about 3.5 hours via car. Our train was cancelled. Now we're here, things are starting to calm down. The riverbed, we're standing next to the River Taff over my right shoulder. In the last 24 hours, that rose very quickly, broke the bank, and several of the streets to my right, just off camera, were flooded. There were some flood defences in place because they did have a bit of an advance warning, but nonetheless, when Mother Nature takes hold, of course, it's devastating. Now, Storm Dennis about 4 years ago was a similar experience for the people here, so they are a bit frustrated that not more has been done in the intervening period to prepare for this sort of thing a little bit better. The council did put out an advance warning, and there was a major incident declared, but nonetheless there are questions for National Resources Wales why they didn't act sooner, why they didn't declare this or warn the residents about this quicker. And that's the feeling I've been getting speaking to residents over the last few hours. One of shock and devastation, as you'd expect, but also frustration that the authorities perhaps didn't move quickly enough and didn't learn lessons from just a few years ago.
Lessons are going to have to be learned, aren't they? Because some of the papers this morning reporting that we're expecting 5 more storms before Christmas. So Storm Bert could just be the start.
Well, that's right, and if that's the case, and the residents here, I mean, one of the problems they spoke to me about was insurance. You know, insurance companies don't like paying out, right? They want to save as much money as they can, and if this is the only storm that impacts the people here, that's enough on their plate. That's enough damage and devastation. If there's more to come, without the backing of local authorities and without sufficient warning and without financial support, the people here are going to be in a lot of trouble just before Christmas. And that's the feeling I've been getting speaking to people here all morning. It's been quite tough, actually. I mean, just over my shoulder, there's a street, Scion Street, which is one of the worst affected. You can see sandbags still on the ground, the mud and the slush and slurry is still there. Fortunately, the riverbed has now reduced, the water levels have now gone down, but it doesn't take long to make a serious amount of damage, and they'll be taking, I suspect, weeks, if not months, to recover from this one. So if there's more, they're going to have to do something more about it.
And Adam, have many people had to be evacuated from their homes, and are power supplies intact throughout that part of Wales?
Power is back. Behind me there's the library, which was being used as a refuge zone, a safe zone. It's no longer being used for that, which is, I suppose, a small piece of good news because the residents no longer need it. However, there are water boiling messages being put out across not just this area but other parts of South Wales, warning people that due to the flooding there's been damage to plumbing work, so you have to be careful. But for now, power is back, which is, I suppose, some good news.
OK, Adam Cherry, good to see you. Thank you very much for bringing us that update.
It's so destructive, isn't it?
Oh,
Water.
absolutely.
The worst.
Yeah.
It comes in, the trail of destruction it leaves behind. The insurance companies, you know, wretched would never want to pay up.
No, you have to fight tooth and nail for that. Yeah, exactly.
And then were they given sufficient warning? But even if they were given sufficient warning, how do you stop it?
You can't stop.
I mean,
Nature.
I suppose you can sandbag your front door. Is that about it? But if the water's going as high, I mean, in some of the images, I mean, the cars are almost submerged.
Yeah. And I mean, if your house is flooded, it will take months to get that sorted. I mean, the people, the residents who've had their houses flooding, I mean, they're going to be disrupted for weeks.
And this is apparently the second time for some of them in just a couple of years.
Yeah.
And we say there are flood warnings, more flood warnings
150
expected.
flood warnings across the country still.
Yeah.
And in Scotland, we were trying to speak to our reporter Tony Maguire in Scotland, but actually the wind has been so powerful in Scotland, it has knocked over his camera this morning, and the camera is broken.
Right.
That's how strong the wind has been up there. But there's yellow weather warnings still in central, western and northern parts of Scotland for wind today.
Ferries cancelled in Scotland, flights, dozens and dozens of flights cancelled in England and Wales. 4 fatalities at least. A body found when they were looking for a dog walker who'd gone missing in North Wales. A pensioner, they think they found, Brian Perry, went missing on Saturday walking his dog. 3 men died on the roads, including a man in his 60s, after a tree fell on a car.
It's like you were saying earlier, it's the trees, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're driving like, I mean, you'd feel like you'd be safe in a car.
Yeah.
But it's the trees that are falling, that are so dangerous. So do take heed if you were out and about today, especially in Wales and especially in Scotland.
And I did hear some of the interviews on GB News yesterday with local residents very, very angry with the authorities because they think they were let down. There should have been more warnings. They only had an amber warning, shouldn't have had a red warning. You know what? But I did hear a lot on the radio about Storm Bert.
Yes, so did I. I feel like it's been spoken about a lot. But like you say, what can you do? Apart from evacuate and put sandbags down, what really can be done? Unless provisions made in terms of water and food. In Ireland, there was a rare red warning over the weekend, which was telling people to stock up on food and water and to stay at the higher level of their house. Or to evacuate entirely. Do let us know if you've been affected by Storm Bert, how you're feeling this morning.
Yeah.
GBnews.com/you'll
And if you are in Wales or in Scotland, did the authorities give you proper, sufficient warning?
Yeah.
We'd like to hear from you, and how did you prepare for it? And if you've been flooded, if you could bear it, can you share some of those images?
Yes, or share a video with us.
A video, yeah, because we'll show it. So the best of luck to you.
Up next, the controversial Channel 4 documentary, which claims that Prince Harry called Queen Camilla a wicked stepmother.
And I believe it, because if you read Spare, he didn't pull his punches about Camilla, did he?
Called her dangerous and spare.
Yeah.
It's just the next instalment, it seems.
And effectively called her a racist too.
Oh dear. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
Telegraph now with bra news. And Lewis, do you remember when you took your girlfriend for her first fitting?
This is M&S Trans Row. I've got a youngish girlfriend. But
she was youngish when you first met her 20 years ago.
Yes, stay young. I don't like. I don't even want to read it. So it's so pervy. It sounds pervy. If I think it's pervy, it's probably very pervy.
Okay.
It says it's first bras for young things. They can't even say young girls.
Well, let's have a look at it. It is it's upsetting. Smart, strong, supported. First bras for fearless young things. So this has been picked up. Actually, Bev Turner from GB News. Took a photo of it, put it online, it's created a bit of a furore.
First of all, those kind of bras are basically unnecessary. They were, when I was that age...
Wearing your bra?
Wear those bras. They used to call them training bras. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if they really were necessary at that time because they didn't have, like...
You've really got to the heart of this, haven't you?
This is one time I'm not going to interrupt you.
Yeah, it's not... No, they're not really necessary. It's like, it's not... Because otherwise...
So really, this is a non-story.
Okay.
Well, yeah. I think it's... I don't know. I mean, there's a little bit of me that was kind of like, pick your battles. Is this the hill to die on? I don't know.
The young things, they're saying I would say it's a dodgy advert anyway, it feels like, because saying young things feels like it's as it says here, like objective. It's sort of saying that they're objects.
Yes, but this is my point about the West. Like, are you aware of a company called Pretty Little Thing? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, one of the major brands for young women in this country is called Pretty Little Thing. I just think that's hilarious. Where were the feminists when they named that? So you go on the tube any day of the week and it says Pretty Little Thing and there's these women in tiny dresses and I don't know.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 9:46. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
And how nice to be with you.
Oh, how nice to be with you on a Monday morning for the second week in a row. It's been a treat.
So, she is Marmite, in my view, for some people.
OK.
Queen Camilla.
Yes, I think that's probably true.
There are some I know who will never forgive her for her role in the implosion of the marriage of the Prince of Wales and Princess Diana. But she's here for good, and I was probably a sceptic, but I come round to it.
I think most people would say what you've just said.
Yeah.
That they've come round to her, and I think
Yeah.
it has taken time. I think it has
going to.
taken 20 years.
Yeah.
But I think, especially in the last 10 years or so, I think it was when Queen Elizabeth accepted that she would be Queen Consort one day.
And she just gets
that
on
changed
with it.
people's opinion.
She knows her role. She's sort of almost one step behind. She doesn't try and upstage the
Yes, she
king.
doesn't.
She's got her own charitable interests, whether it's literacy, particularly for children, and also domestic violence, a most unusual charity for a royal to embrace.
Yes, that's true. And I think most people can see that they are very much in love. King Charles and Queen Camilla. They're very good for each other.
I do call them Fred and Gladys, because they do look a bit like Fred and Gladys.
Fred and Gladys.
But Fred and Gladys in an endearing, charming way.
Yes.
Because he's very royal, because you'd expect it, because he's been brought up, but she isn't.
Is she not?
No.
Well, you'd know because you've met her.
Quite a few times.
Yeah.
Camilla, great in the country, mucking out the horses.
Oh, I see,
walking with the dogs, having a fag. Right, let's read on. We're talking about this because...
Channel 4's new controversial documentary, Queen Camilla, the Wicked Stepmother, aired last night and has been branded a ranty mess. And The Guardian has even questioned the point of it.
The show claims to uncover how the former mistress of King Charles transformed into the adored... I'm not sure she is an adored monarch, she is today, and she's also not monarch. Let's have a quick look at the documentary.
I think Charles's office were pretty cold-blooded in the way they used Harry, misrepresenting facts in order to portray his father and his mistress in a better light.
Well, we're joined now by former senior gardener to King Charles and Queen Camilla at Highgrove House, Jack Stooks. Good to see you this morning, Jack, as always.
Thank you. Hi.
What do you make of this documentary?
I do think it's been put out to try and sort of create this, like you say, Marmite effect. You know, if we hate her, let's hate her more, or let's sort of get people riled up into believing something that's not necessarily true. She is an amazing person. I've known her for 21 years. When I started at Highgrove, she was known as Mrs. PB. She was still obviously Mrs. Parker Bowles at the time. She was always warm and welcoming, friendly, never put a foot wrong, never was sort of out of place. She carried on, you know, seeing her friends, doing all the things that she loves doing. I think at the time she was still even doing a lot more riding. I don't think she does that so much now. But she's stayed in touch with all of her roots. She's kept those roots very much firmly in the ground. And you know, it was a big decision at the time when the Prince of Wales asked her to marry him. It was probably a big decision for her to say yes, because she knew what the public thought of her, but yet the love was obviously stronger, and the king is a better person because of her, and vice versa. She's a better person because of him. You can see they dote on each other. They absolutely adore each other. When you see them at events, they are happy, they're smiley. He wants to be with her, and she wants to be with him. Yes, we're always going to have children saying, "Oh, my mother's great, but my wicked stepmother's such and such." You are going to have that in any home, but I don't think she's tried to do anything to take control of the king's children at all. I don't think she ever has. I don't think she ever will. She's very much in love with her kids, and she still sees them a lot. We hear Tom Parker Bowles talk about Mum's roast chicken, his favourite roast chicken that I think he even put into one of his books. So she's a very homely, warm, lovely person.
That's my point, Jack. I mean, I don't know her like you did, but when I did the Royal Beat, I saw her quite a lot, and I thought she's not, although she speaks in a very deep, well-spoken voice, she is quite, she's good fun, and she's waspish, and she's got a good sense of humour, and she's mischievous.
She is. She's always had, I think, just sort of that cheeky, fun side, and I think we've seen that at different royal events. I think there was one in Canada that we saw. She got the giggles where the people were doing a voice thing. I can't remember where it was, but she suddenly got the giggles about these people thinking that the noise was maybe something that it sounded differently to what they were getting across, and you could see she was trying not to laugh, but I think the more she tried not to, the more giggly she got. And she wouldn't be doing it in any way to sort of belittle anybody. It's very much to sort of be part of taking the fun, being at one with everybody. And when if you go and visit her at her home, she's just very much Camilla. And when she's with the king out and doing public engagement, she's very much the queen. And that's what's so good about her, is that she has remained grounded where she's come from, and she hasn't forgotten that.
Do you think, Jack, the king? We can only speculate, but I imagine it's a matter of distress to the king that his son, Harry, has made little secret of his disdain for Camilla, not least in that book, Spare, which was a bestseller, putting millions more into the bank account of him and his ungrateful wife, Meghan Markle, by doing what they always do, exploiting the royal family.
It was unfortunate how that book came out. I do think that it had a lot more to do with the publishers saying, look, Harry, we need something more salacious. We need something that's going to that people are going to bite. We need something that will produce a headline. What more can you do? What more have you got? And I think he sort of looked around, see where he could add things in, where he could make something, maybe embellish it a little bit more, maybe I want to say fabricate. I don't know exactly what happened in that situation because I wasn't obviously there. But it is a difficult one, and I think the book, probably he's looked back in hindsight and thought perhaps I shouldn't have added these things in. I think he still wanted to write the book. I don't think he's sorry he's written the book, because I think he felt he needed his story heard, and I think that's also important for him.
Jack, we are out of time with you, I'm afraid, but always good to see you. Thank you very much. That's Jack Stoops, who has known King Charles and Queen Camilla for the best part of 20 years. Here's the weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Storm Bert only slowly pulling away after what was a very unsettled weekend for many. A sunshine and blustery showers in the forecast today. Early rain clearing the southeast and then brighter for much of southeast England for the day. But further north and west across the rest of England and Wales, sunny spells, scattered showers. Showers frequent across Northern Ireland and Scotland through the day today. Some of them heavy, giving some longer spells of rain and turning to snow over the Scottish mountains as well. Windy here, gusts of 50 miles an hour possible as Bert only slowly moves away. Blustery elsewhere, but the wind's lighter compared to the weekend, and temperatures near average for the time of year, so feeling cooler than they did yesterday. Into the evening time, we could see the centre of Storm Bert just clearing Shetland there. We've got a mixture of clear spells and showers across Scotland, again falling as snow over the higher ground, temperatures in single figures. So a cool end to Monday. Also showers across Northern Ireland stretching into Northern England as well. Frequent showers for Wales, the West Country. Some dry interludes for the Midlands, southeast England here. Temperatures in single figures as we head through into the evening time. And those showers just continue to push their way eastwards as we end the day and go into the early hours of Tuesday. Perhaps some longer spells of rain developing through the English Channel and affecting some coastal stretches as we head towards the end of the night. Under the clear spells, temperatures dipping away, low single figures, perhaps a touch of frost, staying breezy across northern Scotland with frequent showers here. And Tuesday morning, a wet start here. Elsewhere, some sunny spells, a scattering of showers. After that chilly start, there'll be plenty of sunshine, still the risk of some showers along the south coast, but many parts of England and Wales will be dry with sunny spells. Also Northern Ireland seeing some sunny spells as well. Scotland, a mixture of showers. The winds tending to ease later on as well, and temperatures a little lower, generally reaching 9 or 10 Celsius at best. See you again soon.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Greater Manchester, the A664 is closed in both directions for emergency repairs on Manchester Road at Castleton Moor, causing delays. A number of roads are closed across parts of England and Wales this morning because of flooding. There's widespread disruption to train services too. Northampton railway station is closed because of flooding, so trains aren't running through Northampton and Long Buckby. Between Rugby and Milton Keynes Central on the M1 in Buckinghamshire, the outside lane's closed southbound just before junction 14 at Milton Keynes, where someone's broken down, causing queues. And on the M1 heading south into London, the inside lane is closed along with the exit at junction 2 for the A1 at Five Ways Corner after an accident, with delays towards there from junction 4 at Edgware. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Imagine getting a call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Oh my God. This is amazing.
I'm in shock. That is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
For your chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock on Monday the 25th of November. We are live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and me, Ellie Costello.
Storm Bird has left a trail of destruction across the country with hundreds of storm warnings still in place, and at least 5 deaths have been reported so far.
After a weekend of heavy snow across the whole of Scotland, this is now the aftermath as strong winds batter the west coast of the country. We'll have more in the next hour.
Calls for a general election. The petition accusing the Labour government of going back on their promises edges towards 2 million signatures. Is this buyer's remorse?
And we're getting close to that vote on the assisted dying bill. MPs say they've got enough support for it to pass, but there's already a big split in the cabinet in some of the most important roles relating to the bill.
A Wicked Stepmother. A new royal documentary causes outrage with its labelling of Queen Camilla.
I met Harry at a polo match. I asked him about Camilla and his face darkened and he said, everyone treats her like a goddess, but in fact she's the wicked stepmother.
Band Aid is now 40. 4 decades on, that song, Do They Know It's Christmas? But all this years later, it's still making headlines, some would say, for the wrong reasons.
So the upset over that song is because the lyrics are deemed to be outdated and perhaps inappropriate. Some people are upset that, you know the line, it doesn't snow in Africa at Christmas time? There are parts of East Africa where it does snow.
Yeah, but that was
apparently people are very unhappy about that.
But that was around then.
That was around then.
It's a song. It's a song. You know, if you looked at all the carols and if you looked at all sorts of...
Comedy, films,
Oh,
books.
for heaven's sake. Look, it raised the profile of the poverty in Ethiopia to a scale never heard of before. Bob Geldof, he got an honorary knighthood over it all, and he raised millions and millions. Now, if the Ethiopian government squandered some of that money, that's another matter.
Yeah.
But the idea that we've got to change all the lyrics because of colonialism, get over it.
And it was all for a good cause.
It was.
Remember, it was all done with good intent.
And they all gave up their time, and then every major star was involved.
Yeah.
And the Band Aid concert, Live Aid concert...
Oh, history making.
When Freddie Mercury went on stage with Queen, my God, the stadium was lifted.
Oh, wow.
The roof of the stadium. It was an extraordinary moment.
Well, surely that counts for something. Let us know what you think. gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's the news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Ellie, thank you and good morning. We start this bulletin with some breaking news that an 8-year-old girl has been seriously hurt in a shooting in West London. The Metropolitan Police says the child and a man aged 34 were taken to hospital after they were shot in Southern Row in Ladbroke Grove just after 5:30 yesterday afternoon. The girl's injuries are reportedly not life-threatening and officers are awaiting an update on the man's condition. More on this breaking story as we get it. Storm Bert is bringing further widespread disruption with public transport affected after devastating flooding over the weekend. Great Western Railway says it suspended services on all key routes due to flooding and fallen trees. The operator's network runs between London Paddington and both South West England and South Wales. There are still hundreds of flood alerts in place and a major incident declared in South Wales. Hundreds of homes were left underwater, roads were turned into rivers and winds of up to 82 miles per hour were recorded across parts of the UK. Over 300 flights have been cancelled so far and it's only the second storm of the season. Bath staff will be trained to deal with incidents of drink spiking under government plans to tackle violence against women and girls. Number 10 announced that workers in the nighttime economy will be instructed on how to spot and prevent cases as well as help collect evidence under new pilot programmes to be rolled out from December. The plan is for up to 10,000 bar staff across the country to be trained by spring next year. Further details will be discussed at a meeting in Downing Street today between the Prime Minister and Chief Constables, transport bosses and industry executives. Sir Keir Starmer has reiterated plans for spiking to become a specific offence as he hopes the change will give people the confidence to come forward. Spiking is already a crime that falls under assault, but campaigners say creating a specific offence will help stamp it out by showing a zero-tolerance approach. London's Met Police said reports of spiking increased by 13% last year. In other news, the father of former British soldier James Scott Rees-Anderson, who was 22, has expressed his complete shock to hear that his son had been captured. In a video circulating online, a man dressed in military clothing identifies himself as 22-year-old James Scott Rees-Anderson and says he formerly served in the British Army. He's dressed in combat clothing and speaks with an English accent while appearing to have his hands tied. Russian state news agency TASS quotes a military source saying that what they call a UK mercenary had been taken prisoner in the Kursk area of Russia, part of which Ukraine has held since launching a surprise offensive in August. The annual Confederation of British Industry takes place today as businesses unite to warn Labour their tax rises will stunt growth. Tax rises in the autumn budget are undermining investment among UK companies, according to the head of one of Britain's most prominent business groups. Ray Newton-Smith, one of the Confederation of British Industry, will say in a speech today that across the board in so many sectors, margins are being squeezed and profits are being hit by a tough trading environment that just got tougher. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch will address the conference this afternoon. Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary Helen Whately MP told GB News working people are worse off because of Labour's political choices.
They chose to put up public sector pay, put up the pay deals with the unions above inflation without requiring any productivity reforms. That was a choice they made. They're choosing to throw money into a British energy company. They're choosing to do those things to spend money, and that's why they have put up taxes. So they shouldn't blame us for the political choices that they are making. They talked about growth in the run-up to the election, but actually they're doing the opposite. And I say, I'm talking to businesses who are absolutely distraught. How are they going to survive 5 years of a government behaving like this? Is it this government is incompetent, or is it that they hate business?
In other news, the UK is in a new AI arms race with countries like Russia and North Korea. The Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster will say today. It comes after the Work and Pensions Secretary Liz Kendall yesterday said that NATO countries are involved in a hidden cyber war with Russia. Pat McFadden will be speaking at the NATO Cyber Defence Conference at Lancaster House, warning the UK and its allies that cyber war is now a daily reality. In a bid to keep up with adversaries, Mr McFadden will announce a new laboratory for AI security research. The intervention comes amid a dramatic escalation in tensions between Russia and the West, with Vladimir Putin lowering Moscow's threshold for the use of nuclear weapons and also suggesting the Ukraine war is becoming a global conflict. On Thursday, Moscow used a new ballistic missile in Ukraine, which Vladimir Putin said was in response to the UK and the US allowing missiles they've supplied to be used to strike targets in Russia. MPs in favour of legalising assisted dying in the UK say that the bill has enough support to pass in the Commons. The Telegraph newspaper reports. A cross-party group backing the bill, put forward by Labour MP Kim Leadbeater, believes it will pass if all MPs who have pledged their support attend the vote. It comes as Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood made a strongly worded intervention in the debate, saying the state should never offer death as a service. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has declined to say whether he will back the bill, arguing that he doesn't want to pressure MPs. And Davina McCall says her short-term memory is a bit remiss as she recovers from brain tumour surgery. The TV presenter looked visibly emotional as she posted a video of herself in bed, updating her Instagram followers on her condition, saying it had been a mad time. She expressed an enormous heartfelt thank you to people who'd messaged after the 57-year-old revealed this month she had a benign brain tumour, a colloid cyst, which she described as very rare.
I think when something like this happens, I just feel so grateful. I've always been grateful. I've been really lucky in my life, but I feel unbelievably grateful right now. So thanks for everything, all of you. I'm on the mend, I'm resting, I'm sleeping loads, and I feel really good. I just feel very lucky.
And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More from me in half an hour.
Hello and welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom live across the UK. I'm Andrew Pearce. This is lovely Ali Costello.
And we've got lots of emails coming through this morning. Thank you so much for your company and for your thoughts on Storm Bert. Cynthia's been in touch saying, I live near a small river in East Yorkshire. It was dredged every 2 to 3 years until the late 80s. It hasn't been dredged for decades now, and there's now so much flooding. We need to be dredging our rivers more then, don't we?
Yeah, and this is all part of the water companies, and it's just a general failure. Guttering that's full to overflowing. It's just terrible.
Yeah, especially with the situation where Adam Cherry was showing us a little bit earlier on in North Wales. I mean, dredging of that river would have been a huge help for this storm and the other 5 storms that are coming before Christmas, because there's more to come, you know, this is just the start of the storm season. On the general election petition, which is on...
I'm loving that.
You're really enjoying that story,
I've not signed it. I've not signed it, though. No, I haven't. But we're at one point. I'm going to check while you're talking.
Have a check. But this morning, before we came on air, it was on 1.8 million signatures. 1.9 million, we're being told now. It is gaining momentum, isn't it?
It's going to be 2 million by lunchtime.
But the petition for a second referendum on Brexit came to 6 million.
And they took...
and nothing was done about that.
Well,
so
the law says that once it reaches 100,000, Parliament has a duty to look at it, or even talk about it or discuss it. So it could be raised at a point of order. There is absolutely no possibility that the Prime Minister is going to succumb to a general election. Now, frankly, he'd still win.
Do you think? Do you think there's buyer's remorse?
Are we not allowed to talk about our exclusive research? Is that too soon?
We do have some exclusive analysis, but we can have a look at that a little bit
We'll tease
later
you
on
about
in the programme. We'll
because
tease you on it. It's
actually,
very interesting.
if there was a general election tomorrow, you may be disappointed to know, according to our research, about who wins.
Yes.
Just going to leave it hanging in the air.
I'm going to tease that one.
Yeah.
But David agrees with you, saying the Labour government is not going to listen to the public call, but it should but it should be a wake-up call for Keir Starmer and Downing Street. The public have had enough of them
Where was
already.
Where was Keir Starmer yesterday? OK, he was watching his beloved Arsenal. Where was he? In the director's box. Was he having another freebie? Yes, he was.
Yeah. Well,
So
he
he
says it's for
listens.
security, so he can't stand it.
Well,
He can't sit in the stands.
So when he was Prime Minister, remember him, Rishi Sunak? Used to occasionally go and watch his team Southampton in the stand with his mates in the normal way. A very, very high-profile Prime Minister. For many reasons. He didn't need to go in the director's box to be feted. So he's not listening.
Well, it would make a lot of people, it would make him popular with a lot of people if he was stood in the stands, sat in the stands at Arsenal. I go to football matches all the time.
He talked to me at the last Labour conference, Prime Minister, about football. How well do you think that conversation went?
Well, I don't know, maybe quite
Straight
one-sided.
over my head.
Yeah, exactly.
I know he supports Arsenal.
Well,
that's it.
We all do, don't we?
He doesn't know my team is struggling at the lowest end of Division 2, Swindon Town, lost on Saturday to the lowest team in the country. The lowest team in the country.
Dear. Well, maybe he should have been in a part of the country that has been ravaged by storm Bert.
Ravaged.
Maybe that would have been a better idea.
Wales, Scotland.
Yes, parts of Yorkshire as well are
Yeah.
flooded. At least 5 deaths suspected to have been caused by Storm Bert so far.
There's still 200 flood alerts in place and a major incident declared in South Wales, but there doesn't seem to be any end in sight just yet.
Yes, over 300 flights have been cancelled so far. And remember, this is only the second storm of the season. There's still at least 5 to come before Christmas, we're being told in the papers today.
Well, we're going to go up to Scotland now and join GB News reporter Tony Maguire, who is in flooded Ayrshire. Tony, morning.
Hello, good morning. I'm here at Ardrossan Harbour, and it's an awful windy one, as you can hear. Certainly over the weekend, Scotland, well, we got our fair share of snow. Some might say more than expected, and that was followed briskly by a rapid thaw. And on top of all that extra groundwater that we've seen here, of course, it has been raining non-stop over the course of the weekend. So anybody at home who thought that snow that we got on Saturday was the beginning and end of it will be sorely mistaken. And of course, when it comes to the disruption, the wind very much still blowing here at Ardrossan Harbour. This is one of the 2 harbours that had sailing over to Arran, the other being Troon, just slightly further down the Ayrshire coast. One of the areas which was warned by the Scottish Environmental Protection Agency, SEPA, as potential risk of flooding. However, it's these high winds up to 75 miles an hour, which has cancelled sailings over to Arran and back for a second day. Now, it's not just Arran that's affected here. There's also the Isle of Cumbrae, which is fed by the ferry terminal in Largs, and indeed all the way up the west coast of Scotland, we see sailings from Oban and so on that have succumbed to this second bout of terrible weather. Now, the sun here in Ardrossan is just trying to sneak through, but certainly that's not going to be enough to tip the scales. Very much across Scotland here, we've had quite a lot of ground flooding, some in metropolitan areas like the city of Edinburgh and Glasgow, of course. Aberdeen, as we know, had quite a huge dump of snow at the start of last week. But indeed, Edinburgh ground to an absolute halt. Pretty much all public transport, ScotRail services came down to a skeleton service over the weekend. But, you really have to feel for these island communities, particularly Arran. Arran, who's been waiting 8 years for the delivery of that Glen Sannox ferry. Well, that ferry was finally delivered to Caledonian McBrae, the ferry operator here, last week. However, it was, of course, 6 years late and 4 times over budget. And even with this terrible weather, which perhaps the Glen Sannox might have fared slightly better, although it was most likely that it would, of course, been cancelled also. But that ferry is not going to come into circulation until January next year. So these island communities just have to hold on a little bit longer But if this is what November looks like, then of course, for the rest of winter, it's going to be a long, cold one for these island communities.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's still a lot more to come, isn't there, Tony? Thank you very much indeed. You've been a superstar this morning. Tony's camera actually blew over in the wind this morning and is completely smashed. He is now broadcasting from his phone. He's keeping calm and carrying on. Thank you, Tony. Go get yourself a nice hot tea now, I think. Go get warm. Thank you very much.
Go and get a hot whiskey.
Oh, good idea. Isn't he a superstar?
He's a great.
I love that. No fuss.
Just gets on with it.
Just a plan B.
Now, do you want a general election? Because a petition calling for one has already surpassed 1.9 million signatures in less than 2 days.
Yep, and it's growing all the time, isn't it? It adds to what has been a very difficult few weeks for the government, who've seen large protests against their autumn budget.
Some exclusive analysis by Electoral Calculus for GB News. If there were to be an election tomorrow, Labour would lose their current majority. The figures predicted stand as...
Labour losing 88 seats down to 324. Conservatives would gain 72 seats, bringing them up to 193. The Liberal Democrats would lose 3 seats, taking them down to 69. And Reform would gain 6 seats, taking them to 11.
Well, let's talk to the Chief Executive of Electoral Calculus, Martin Baxter. Martin, morning. You've been looking at polls for a very long time. Am I right in thinking this is a pretty extraordinarily dramatic descent in the polls for a new government so soon after they won with a landslide election, albeit on a lower share of the vote?
That's right, Andrew. I was trying to cast my mind back as well to see if there were any precedents for this with Mrs. Thatcher or Tony Blair or Boris Johnson. But nobody, I think, has really lost a majority, such a big majority, or gone down in the polls so far so fast. That it's as if Labour took great care to carry their Ming vase across the finish line, and just 6 months later it's smashed in pieces on the floor. That they are now only 1% ahead of the Conservatives in the opinion polls. And yeah, as our analysis figures show, they would be just short of a majority if there was an election tomorrow. So it looks like I think Keir Starmer is probably not going to listen to this petition, which is gaining support all the time. I have it clicking away here. It's approaching 2 million sometime today, I should think. But it's, yeah, it is unprecedented for a government to lose so much popularity so quickly. Obviously, it doesn't affect their constitutional ability to govern. They've got a big majority in the House of Commons, but it must be slightly unsettling for them.
And his own personal poll ratings too, Martin, are really poor. We know from the polls there was no great affection for him out there in the run-up to the last election. My argument would be Labour won the election because the Tories were so ghastly. They'd been in power for 14 years. They kept changing leaders, so people wanted to change. But now they're looking at Keir Starmer, and the more they see of him, it seems, the less they like him.
Yes, he's perhaps not a great communicator, though none of the candidates really were at the general election, perhaps Nigel Farage, who has a great cut-through. And he's not used his initial honeymoon period with the voters, when he had the big majority and the mandate, to kind of explain who he is politically and what he wants to accomplish. So we've had a lot of negative comments about how bad the country is, and then the budget was, on the whole, bad news for many people who are paying more taxes. So their messaging, I think, has not been great. I think my own take is that perhaps the public voted partly, as you say, to kick the Conservatives out, but maybe also thinking that Keir Starmer was going to be Tony Blair Mark II. It was going to be another edition of New Labour. But he has not governed as New Labour. That the noises have been more pro-union, student union politics kind of debating style, plus increased taxes and increased public spending. So it's a bit more old Labour, going back to people like Jim Callaghan in the 70s. And it is so far not going down well with the public.
Martin, at what point do you think, I mean, it's gaining traction all the time, almost at 2 million signatures already. At what point do you think, if any, would this be debated in Parliament?
Well, I believe it has to be debated if it gets to 100,000. So I think they have to have a debate. But, you know, is Keir Starmer going to follow the suggestion of the petition? I think he is not. But equally, it will have some effect on Labour MPs. It's worth remembering at the last election, although Labour won a huge number of seats, there's more marginal constituencies than there have been in many decades. And many of these marginal seats are Labour. So there will be Labour MPs who are beginning to look at the polls and these predictions who are thinking, my position is not as safe as I would like it to be. Should we be doing something? I'm not, but I think it's early to talk about revolts and rebellions in the Labour Party. But if their popularity continues this low or gets worse, then pressures will build.
If there was one issue that has lit the touch paper, Martin, is it the abolition of winter fuel? Do you think, which has really most outraged public opinion?
I think it's hard to say. I think it's probably different groups suffer or have different. There'll be different issues triggering people. But so far, Labour have not done, unless you're a public sector worker, Labour have not done a lot for you so far. And so I think a bit like the Conservatives managed to repel people in all directions, Labour, if they're well advised, would stop doing that and would pick their enemies or pick their targets carefully and try and do things for the bulk of the British people.
Okay,
so
Martin,
obviously they have still got 4 more years to go.
Yes.
So I think it's a bit early to write them off at this stage, but it's certainly a sort of one, it's a pretty bad start to a landslide government.
Yeah, Martin Baxter, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much.
We should remind people what that, if you want to vote in the poll, opinion, petition, how you do it. I don't know how you do it.
No, I don't know either.
We'll
get that.
We'll get that for you next time.
We'll get the website for you.
Because I think it's going to go above 2 million quite soon.
Yeah, but as Martin Baxter was just saying there, still got 4.5 years to go.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Labour would say they're getting the tough things out of the way first because they've had a difficult inheritance, as we keep hearing, and better days are coming.
But also, there is a lot of evidence that shows people make their mind up about a leader in the first 100 days.
True.
He's had more than 100 days.
Yes, and it's been a very challenging 100 days, hasn't it?
Poll of the day is, do you want another general election now? We'll bring you those live results throughout the day, so make sure you stay tuned to the final result, which will be announced later in
Martin Daubney's show. And as always, for all the latest polls, news and how to vote, just go to gbnews.com/poll.
Up next, we're going to be talking to our fabulous panel, Matthew Talbot, who used to work for the Labour Party, and Steve Baker, who was a Tory government minister. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
The birth rate in Britain has sunk to 1.49, well below replacement rate. Yet policies pursued by both major parties are still to spend huge sums to encourage parents back to their work when their children are still at preschool age. Should we not be helping parents to spend longer at home, asks his new book, whilst recognising that in an age of sex equality, the question is fraught. David Goodhart joins me now.
We undervalue the domestic realm, and that has led to lots of the most negative trends in British society. About half of children in the UK are not living with both of their biological parents by the age of 14. We have, of families with dependent children, about 24-25% are single-parent households. Mainly mothers, and they're doing, valiant work. But of course, it means you don't have the investment in children that a two-parent family can give. I mean, the reason why it's a care dilemma is that a lot of these negative trends are also kind of intimately related to positive things, like that movement of women into work, the fact that women are no longer so defined by marriage and motherhood, the fact that women and men are freer to leave unhappy relationships. And the challenge for modern liberal societies is, how we hold on to those freedoms but get a better balance, which means, I think, investing more in the domestic realm. We spend a total now of £9 billion on childcare subsidies. Why not give that subsidy direct to young parents so they could then choose whether to subsidise themselves, as it were, to be able to afford to stay at home, or to give it to a nursery, or to give it to granny, or to keep it in the home.
GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 10:26. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and me, Ellie Costello. And we're joined now by our fabulous panel this morning. Former Conservative MP Steve Baker and former Labour advisor Matthew Torbett in the studio. Very good morning to both of you.
I think we should ask about our exclusive GB poll.
Oh, well, why don't we start there, Andrew?
Because you've seen this petition has already rattled up to 1.9 million. Yeah. You're not doing so well, Matthew, that Labour would lose their overall majority if there was an election tomorrow. This is from electoral calculus.
I am not surprised. I've said for ages that Labour's majority was very, very broad but very, very shallow. You know, in Wickham I lost because people who usually vote Conservative stayed at home. About half of Conservative voters stayed at home. It wasn't a great, you know, exaltation of desire for Labour. So, yeah, I'm not surprised.
Are you surprised, Matthew?
No, I've always said it would last 5 years. I think the only surprise is that we would just be under one for a majority and the Liberals would probably help us out. We may actually get another term out of it. That would be my assumption. I was surprised. I forgot, not to rub it in, I forgot how bad the Tories had done to increase 72 seats but still have less than 200 MPs. I think there's a lot of hard work for the Tories to do as well. But, you know, if anything, the petition gave me a little bit of PTSD. I don't know about Steve. I remember the days of 6 million people wanting to revoke Article 50. And sort of, you know, people are obviously frustrated, but it wouldn't worry me massively. I think there's just a lot of work.
There's a long time to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 4.5 years.
I mean, Matt's right. It's a terrific stunt, but the government's not going to fall for the petition. They're not going to do that.
No.
Matthew, let's have a look at the cabinet that are split over this assisted dying vote today.
It doesn't surprise me. I think there's. I feel a bit sorry for Kim Leadbeater. Actually, I imagine this bill was maybe one that was a bit of a handout. Keir Starmer was quite vocal.
Do you think she was encouraged to do it? Because there's no record of her ever been going on the record about speaking up in favour of assisted dying. No, if you look in, never. So she gets to the top of the poll and she picks it. Do you think somebody in number 10 said, "Go on"?
Yeah, no, this is what happens. Yeah, I've worked for whips before, and the idea is that you will have a list of what you call government handouts. These are bills the government would like to become legislation, and you can take the glory for it. So Keir Starmer was obviously very vocal about how he basically promised Esther Ranson that he was going to try and change the law. I think the thing that I feel sorry for Kim for is not just that cabinet ministers are coming out. I think West Streeting has started a bit of an avalanche of people declaring which way they're going to vote, which Simon Case said they weren't supposed to. I do think, you know, he's got to be the guy that implements this, so I have a little bit of sympathy, but, you know, he should do as he's told.
He's also got a huge Muslim population in his constituency, and he nearly lost his seat last time.
Yeah, I mean, the religion argument may play into it, I don't know, but the thing with the bill is this is not being given a lot of government time. This is being treated like any ordinary private member's bill where they'll get 5 hours debate this Friday.
That's outrageous.
And I just think, I understand some people said at the weekend, you know, if people already know how they feel about this, a longer debate isn't going to change people's minds. But if you look at things like Sidney Silverman, when he brought in a private member's bill to end the death penalty altogether, and David Steele with the abortion legislation, these bills were given proper government time and, you know, a proper debate in a sense.
It's not enough time, is it?
Issues like this are free votes for a reason, because they engage conscience. And if it was Labour policy to do it, I mean, I recognise what you say, Matt, about it being a handout, possibly. But if it was Labour policy to do it, they should have put it in the manifesto, and that, again, would have brought up the whole issue of conscience. But I would just say the whole reason this is on the front page of the Eye The reason it's a big row is political incompetence.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The civil service really hates politics, and that's fair enough. They're not there to do politics. So Simon Case's advice is understandable.
This is the Cabinet Secretary.
The Cabinet Secretary. But the Keir Starmer should have known that every member of the Cabinet was going to have to express a position to their constituents. So by setting it up as something where they should be united and say nothing or little, he created the conditions for this row, and it was foolish. He should have just understood and said, it's a free vote issue. Cabinet members, like any other member of Parliament, are free to speak their minds. But obviously, they're not speaking for the government when they comment. And then it wouldn't have been a front page.
And now you've got people privately is number 10 furious with Wes Streeting. Front page of The Spectator magazine this week.
Yeah.
You know, shootout at the OK Corral between the Prime Minister and Streeting, who's supposed to be his most key ally.
Well, I think the more interesting thing I found was we might get another Keir Starmer U-turn. And I don't enjoy having a go at Keir Starmer and Labour, but they make it really easy at the moment, unfortunately. He's obviously gone out on this big promise. He wants to see a change in the law. He has now since said, from being really confident of what he wanted, that he is going to vote on the bill, but not going to say which way. And I just wonder whether he's actually going to go, oh, this might not pass.
Well, he's now saying he's going to read the bill line by line.
Well, you'd hope so. You'd hope he'd read it line by line. I mean, it's not a very long bill, is it?
I read the bill line by line yesterday before going on another station, and it doesn't take very long. He's a lawyer. He can read it like that and make his mind up.
Well, let's hope he does, line by line. Matt and Steve, thank you very much.
You're coming back. We'll give you longer time next time.
Yes, and we will give you longer time next time. Thank you very much indeed. Lots more still to come from us too, but first time for your news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Ellie, thank you very much. The top stories. Well, Storm Bert is bringing further widespread disruption with public transport affected after devastating flooding over the weekend. Great Western Railway says it's suspended services on all key routes due to flooding and fallen trees. The operator's network runs between London Paddington and both South West England and South Wales. There are still hundreds of flood alerts in place and a major incident declared in South Wales. Hundreds of homes were left underwater, roads were turned into rivers, and winds of up to 82 miles per hour were recorded across parts of the UK. Over 300 flights have been cancelled so far. It is only the second storm of the season. Bar staff will be trained to deal with incidents of drink spiking under government plans to tackle violence against women and girls. Number 10 announced that workers in the nighttime economy will be instructed on how to spot and prevent cases, as well as help collect evidence under a new pilot programme to be rolled out from December. The plan is for up to 10,000 bar staff across the country to be trained by spring next year. Further details are currently being discussed at a meeting in Downing Street between the Prime Minister and Chief Constables, transport bosses and industry executives. Sir Keir Starmer has reiterated plans for spiking to become a specific offence, as he hopes the change will give people the confidence to come forward. London's Metropolitan Police said reports of spiking increased by 13% last year. MPs in favour of legalising assisted dying in the UK say that the bill has enough support to pass in the Commons. The Telegraph reports that a cross-party group backing the bill put forward by Labour MP Kim Leadbeater believes it will pass if all MPs who have pledged their support attend the vote. It comes as Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood made a strongly worded intervention in the debate, saying the state should never offer death as a service. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has declined to say whether he will back the bill, arguing that he doesn't want to pressure MPs. A manhunt has been launched after an 8-year-old girl and a man were seriously injured in a shooting in West London yesterday. The Metropolitan Police says the child, who is now in a stable condition, and a 34-year-old man who was also injured were taken to hospital after being shot in Southern Row in Ladbroke Grove just after 5:30 yesterday afternoon. A 32-year-old woman was also taken to hospital as a precaution but was not hurt. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Storm Bert only slowly pulling away after what was a very unsettled weekend for many. As sunshine and blustery showers in the forecast today. Early rain clearing the southeast and then brighter for much of southeast England for the day. But further north and west across the rest of England and Wales, sunny spells, scattered showers. Showers frequent across Northern Ireland and Scotland through the day today. Some of them heavy, giving some longer spells of rain and turning to snow over the Scottish mountains as well. Windy here, gusts of 50 miles an hour possible as Bert only slowly moves away, blustery elsewhere, but the wind's lighter compared to the weekend and temperatures near average for the time of year, so feeling cooler than they did yesterday. Into the evening time, we could see the centre of Storm Bert just clearing Shetland there. We've got a mixture of clear spells and showers across Scotland, again falling as snow over the higher ground, temperatures in single figures. So a cool end to Monday. Also showers across Northern Ireland stretching into Northern England as well. Frequent showers for Wales, the West Country. Some dry interludes for the Midlands, southeast England here. Temperatures in single figures as we head through into the evening time. And those showers just continue to push their way eastwards as we end the day and go into the early hours of Tuesday. Perhaps some longer spells of rain developing through the English Channel and affecting some coastal stretches as we head towards the end of the night. Under the clear spells, temperatures dipping away, low single figures, perhaps a touch of frost, staying breezy across northern Scotland with frequent showers here. And Tuesday morning, a wet start here. Elsewhere, some sunny spells, a scattering of showers. After that chilly start, there'll be plenty of sunshine, still the risk of some showers along the south coast, but many parts of England and Wales will be dry with sunny spells. Also Northern Ireland seeing some sunny spells as well. Scotland, a mixture of showers. The winds tending to ease later on as well, and temperatures a little lower, generally reaching 9 or 10 Celsius at best. See you again soon.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. There's widespread disruption because of flooding this morning across parts of England and Wales, with a number of roads closed and a number of rail lines suspended too. In Greater Manchester, the A664 is closed each way along Manchester Road at Castleton Moor for emergency repairs, causing delays. In Lincolnshire, the A46 is closed each way between Caban and Caister after an accident. On the M25 in Essex, there's a lane closed anti-clockwise at junction 27 for the M11, where a motorhome's broken down, causing roughly 3 miles of queues. On the M1 heading south into London, the exit at junction 2 for the A1 at Five Ways Corner is closed because of an accident, with 4 miles of queues towards there. And the M25 in Kent is blocked clockwise by an accident between junctions 5 and 6 from the A21 to Godstone, with queues back along the M26 for around a mile. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. It's 10:38.
Well, the Foreign Office says it's supporting the family of a British man after reports of his detention by Russian forces. He was out there fighting for the Ukrainians.
Yes, in a widely circulated video first posted on Telegram, the man identifies himself as 22-year-old James Anderson and claims he had previously served in the British Army before he was fired.
To tell us more, sanctions and war crime specialist Sarah Elizabeth Dill joins us. Sarah, this is the risk. Good morning to you. This is the risk. I don't want to call him a mercenary. Volunteers, whatever, take when they take up arms on behalf of Ukraine. They could get they could be killed. B, they could be captured.
Correct, and that is one of the disputes that has been going on since the war started, as Ukraine formed this foreign legion, and they are paid soldiers, and Russia insists that these soldiers, I think approximately 6,000 to 7,000 from the UK and the US, are serving in this legion, and they are paid. They are paid somewhat more than Ukrainian soldiers are paid, but not significantly, which is one of the requirements under the definition of mercenaries in the additional protocol. And the concern here is that if he is being treated as a mercenary, he's not being given prisoner of war and other protections that he would otherwise be entitled to. However, many think that these soldiers should be treated as standard soldiers, given the protections of prisoners of war, access to the ICRC, their governments, prohibitions on torture, and the other protections that they're entitled to.
Sarah, what is likely to happen to James, considering the context that Putin is particularly angry after the green light was given to Ukraine to use US and UK long-range weapons inside Russia?
Certainly, the escalation has caused increased tension. There have already been cases where Russia has tried, convicted, and sentenced soldiers from other countries, including a few from the United Kingdom. And it's suspected that this person is likely being tortured. The news reports from Russia indicate that he is being questioned, which most likely means interrogated. And so most likely they will bring criminal charges against him and they will hold him without the protections to which he's entitled.
Will he know much? I mean, what apart from propaganda of being able to wheel him out as a prisoner, Sarah, what intelligence potentially could he give the Russians?
I think a lot depends whether he was fighting on the front lines, whether he was embedded with any special forces or other units, if he had access to high-level information. From what I understand, his service in the UK military was not long. He was not high-ranking. It does not appear he was involved in any intelligence. But if he was embedded in any of those units, he may even just as a soldier have information as to troop movements, numbers of troops, arms that they have available, missiles or other things that have been delivered from UK or US forces to the troops. So it's potential he could have some information, but how high level that is quite unlikely.
I mean, his family will be hoping that he will be used as a bargaining chip and he will be kept alive. Do you think that's likely?
It's tough to say, depending on who the UK authorities have in their custody. Obviously, there's the ongoing war regarding sanctions and the seizure of Russian assets, the concerns about UK arms being sent to Russia and being used, the new announcement of landmines being authorized by the US government. And so, should Russia choose to use them as a bargaining chip, certainly my heart goes out to the family. And I hope that the Foreign Office is doing, despite their somewhat poor record in these situations, I do hope the Foreign Office is engaging on this. But I think this really calls into attention, too, the approach that the governments are taking as to this conflict. It's been going on for a number of years now. And are the governments truly seeking resolution and a political solution to this conflict, or are they simply taking things to escalate, which then places UK citizens at risk?
In a sense, we're almost a bit player in it, aren't we, Sarah? Because what Britain says about the conduct of war in Ukraine and military aid, isn't that a lot of that depends on the United States? And we all know that could change dramatically when President-elect Trump moves into the White House.
Certainly, and the statements Trump has made already as his desire to end the war between Russia and Ukraine on day one of his presidency, the threats to stop sending arms, which certainly, if nations are not supplying arms, from the Russian perspective, I'm sure that their position is so long as the UK and the US are supplying arms to Ukraine, that's allowing this war to continue, and it makes the UK and US complicit in the conflict. And so from the Russian perspective, it is at least understandable the perspective they're taking, even if it is not legally correct.
Sarah Elizabeth Dill, we're out of time with you, I'm afraid, but thank you very much for your analysis.
It is fascinating, isn't it?
Fascinating. Talk to her all morning.
Yeah, and brave or reckless, these young
that's
men,
the question,
and women, presumably, going out to fight for Ukraine.
And I wonder how many British people are out there.
They do get paid.
Are out there fighting in Ukraine.
And we know some have died.
Yes, yes. And James, who we're talking about today, James Anderson, just 22 years old.
Yeah, and you could see in the video that was put out that he
frightened.
Had a gun virtue to his head.
Yeah.
Almost literally.
Very, very frightened, yeah. I mean, his family had said they'd begged him not to go to Ukraine, but he'd worked in the British Army, he thought he had a good experience, and he'd watched the war in Ukraine on the television and thought he wanted to go and help.
Remember Liz Truss, I don't think she was Foreign Secretary, Prime Minister, encouraging British people to go out there. Not something I would do.
No, it's not a very wise idea, I'd say. Anyway, let us know what you think on that one. gbnews.com/you'll say. Up next, Band-Aid.
Shall I sing it?
Feed
the world, let them know it's Christmas time.
It's a classic, isn't it?
It is.
Well, the latest version has just been released this morning. We'll be talking about that next.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Should we talk about Gordon Brown?
He's been talking about this child benefit cap, and he's, given speeches about it and feels very, very strongly about it. He says there's twice as many children living in poverty as pensioners in this country, Paula. It's made the front of the eye, but pretty much that's the only paper taking this up because everything else being dominated by the Archbishop of Canterbury.
Yeah, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I just don't think you should have child upon child if you can't afford it. And I believe anyone in a committed relationship should be able to have one child, definitely. Or maybe even two, but one, definitely. But they want over two. I mean, I just think that's insane. If you're not working, why do you expect taxpayers to pay for one, two, not just two, three, four, five, six?
You've taken the words out of my mouth, and I just think this is really
It's not a radical
natural.
thing, yeah.
If you can't afford them, what normal person would have them? Now, Isabel tends not to agree with me on this, but I just don't think the state should be paying for children.
But it's not paying for children, is it? It's just...
Well, it's aiding. It's giving them money. Taxpayers are paying. And let's not forget, 1 in 3 children are now born to mothers not born in the UK. And we've got an ever-growing benefit bill.
30% of children born in this country, their parents were not born in the UK.
But we have a fertility problem, don't we?
Maybe Starmer and his team are willing to find a compromise or give up a bit of ground on this issue. But it's very rare that Gordon Brown kind of makes a campaigning moment. And that will cause... obviously, this is an issue that, amongst the backbenchers, is difficult for Starmer.
I think, I might be wrong, I have a feeling Nigel Farage and Gordon Brown are on the same page on this issue, which might surprise people. I might be wrong.
Very, very interesting.
So just be clear, what does Brown want? What's he looking for?
He's basically saying that this cap on the child benefit is heinous and basically hurts children.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Time is 10:47. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with the lovely Ellie.
Oh, thanks, Andrew. Now, 40 years on today, Band Aid's now famous charity single,
Do They Know It's
Christmas Time, yes, was recorded. And the new version of the song was released this morning, putting together the voices of everyone who's contributed since the original release in 1984.
However, there has been a backlash with Ed Sheeran, very popular with millions of people, of course, saying he wishes his vocals hadn't been included in the 40th anniversary special because he said it creates racist stereotypes for Africa. Yawn.
Well, here's a reminder of that song. Well, we're joined now by TV personality and music commentator Theo Main. Good to see you this morning, Theo. What do you make of it? What do you make of the song?
Nice to see you. I mean, it is a dated song, but it's a very iconic song. I think, I wasn't even born in 1984. And it's something...
Well, don't rub it in, Theo. Don't rub it in.
It's rubbed in. It's well and truly. And I think it's something we've grown up with. In my life, in the household as well, but my mum's always been one of them people to say charity starts at home. So is it something that needs to be kind of done in a different way so we can maybe start helping at home, and then it's a butterfly effect, then we can help worldwide. I think the world we're living at the moment is a very different place to what it was in 1984 when this iconic song came out. For myself, I love Christmas. It's fun, it's family felt, but I mean, it's the same Christmas songs over every year. And obviously Ed Sheeran's was used in 2014, which is a while ago now. So I can understand where he's coming from. I mean, if I was Ed Sheeran, I'd be like, yeah, I don't really want to be a part of that anymore. The UK alone is in a different way than it was in 1984. So it's something that I'm kind of on the fence. I mean, it is dated. What about kind of modernising it, targeting a different audience? I mean, the younger generation of today probably have no idea what it is. Not a clue, not a foggiest. So
but Theo, isn't that the point of it? That's why it's great that it's re-released, because people like you are talking about it. We're talking about it on GB News, that we talked about it in other places, and it's going to raise money for charity. What's not to like about that? And if some people have a problem with the lyrics, well, you know, they don't have to buy it, do they?
Yeah, definitely. I think, the main focus for me is charity starts at home. I think focus on maybe regurgitating the song, giving it a fresh feel for that younger generation. So it's targeting them, and then we can move forward to help the world. But I think at the moment where we are in the world we live in, it's a very dark place at the moment. I think we can focus having Band-Aid at home. If we start there, and then we move further afield.
Theo, I was just thinking of some of the people who were in it at the time. McCartney, a legend. George Michael, a legend. Phil Collins, Annie Lennox, Sting. The list just went on and on and on.
Yeah, and the intent is important here, isn't it, Theo? Because, I mean, just those list of names that Andrew was talking about there, these huge celebrities, superstars, I mean, they were doing something good and for good.
It's a massive celebrity calibre in that song. It's huge. It is massive. I'm not going to take that away from it. It's an iconic song, like I mentioned. I just think maybe it's time to rechange it, switch up the words, give it a modern edge, and target a different audience. It's for a fantastic cause. It's raised a lot of money over the years it's been out. But my personal opinion is maybe it's time to switch it up a bit. Music industry has changed drastically. We've got platforms like TikTok where there's musicians absolutely thriving. And I think we just need to focus and start charity at home. I think that's just my personal opinion at the moment. It's a 40-year-old song. Iconic, it is. But maybe it's time to switch it up a little bit, keep the help going, but also focus on maybe doing something new. Have it like an extension, a branch of the song that helps people in different places.
OK, Theo, good to see you this morning.
And yeah, I just spotted the lineup Tony Hadley, and I was chatting to him.
All the stars.
I chatted to him,
and you know him as well.
I chatted to him at a charity dinner on Saturday night.
Yeah.
Of course, he was the lead of Spandau Ballet. He was singing. It was a ball to raise money for Shooting Stars children's hospices. Who couldn't want to raise money for children's hospices? Yeah. And it's when they showed the film of the little ones who died, and I was like, oh my God, how did I?
Oh,
but then he lifted the mood because he's still got it. And I asked him about Live Aid Band-Aid. He said he was so proud to have been associated with it.
And I think most people are. I mean, £150 million has been raised over the last 4 decades from this song.
Yeah.
But that's not to be sniffed at.
No.
But the likes of Ed Sheeran has says that his understanding of the narrative associated with this song has now changed.
Oh, dear me.
He says his permission wasn't asked for, and he would have removed his permission.
Would he? Well, that's small-minded and churlish of him.
Well, let us know what you think. GBNews.com.
We've got some breaking news.
We do have some breaking news.
That petition demanding a general election, it's gone over 2 million signatures.
Wow.
I still haven't signed it.
Have you not?
Nope. Have you?
Lots of people have. I haven't signed it.
Lots of people have. We're going to show you on GB News. If you don't know how... Oh, it's up on the screen now. If you're... Oh, we're not signposted how to get to it, but you can find it. If you just put it in Google, you'll find it.
Yeah.
Still to come.
60,000 hours of police time taken up by non-crime hate incidents.
In other words, wasting time.
Well.
Wasting police time.
Well, a very senior Met Police official has said just that, said they should be scrapped entirely. We're going to be talking about that next.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's another windy day on offer for many of us today, with sunny spells and showers, these merging into longer spells of rain at times too, and it is going to be feeling chilly today. We've got Storm Bert just to the north of the country, which brought the impacts over the weekend, still bringing in some rain and some windy weather, particularly across northern areas. But across the south and southeast, it's generally going to be a much brighter day if you compare it to the weekend. Still plenty of showers across the country, though, particularly in the west around coasts, though some moving inland at times, and these merging into longer spells of rain across Scotland too. Still with those blustery winds continuing. Temperatures round about average for the time of year, but still feeling chilly across the far northeast of Scotland. Now, heading into this evening, we are still going to see plenty of those showers, as I say, merging into longer spells of rain at times across Scotland. Heavy at times, generally falling as rain, though we still could see some sleet and snow above high ground. Still plenty of blustery winds here too. Plenty of showers feeding in across Northern Ireland, northwest England too. Driest and brightest across the far eastern of parts of the country. Wales and southwest England also seeing plenty of showers move through this evening. But generally there are going to be some clear spells overnight, particularly across the Midlands and southeast England, and with winds lightening off, we could even see some fog develop overnight. But there are still plenty of blustery showers feeding in around western areas and northwestern coasts of Northern Ireland and Scotland. So overnight, under those clear spells, it is still going to be a chilly night on offer, but generally winds easing away with clearer skies. Could even see a little bit of frost by the time we reach the morning. Now, as we head into Tuesday, once again, a brighter day overall for many of us. There are still a few showers around at times around Northern Ireland, northwestern England, still around coasts of Scotland. But elsewhere, many places should see lots of dry weather, plenty of sunny spells, and with average temperatures, should feel rather pleasant for the time of year. Bye for now.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's our festive treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £50,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest ever Great British giveaway. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements, or maybe you just like to save it for a special occasion. So your chance to win £50,000 cash. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries costs £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
11 o'clock on Monday, the 25th of November, live across the UK. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Ellie Costello.
Storm Bert leaving a trail of destruction with hundreds of warnings still in place and at least 5 deaths reported since the storm hit.
I'm here at the Stranraer Harbour, where we can see no ferries in sight because cancellations up and down the west coast of Scotland as flooding hits some of the Ayrshire coast.
Well, those calls for a general election, it's turning into a clamour. The petition accusing the Labour government of going back on its election promises has smashed through the £2 million barrier. Is it buyer's remorse or more?
Assisted dying bill. MPs backing the bill claim they have enough support for it to pass, but could a split in the cabinet cause chaos?
Already is. Is she a wicked stepmother? A new Royal documentary has triggered fury, if that's the label for Queen Camilla.
I met Harry at a polo match. I asked him about Camilla and his face darkened and he said, everyone treats her like a goddess, but in fact, she's the wicked stepmother.
Band-Aid at 40. 4 decades since the song Do They Know It's Christmas first stormed the charts, and all these years later, it's still making headlines, some would say, for the wrong reasons.
Well, I wonder what your view is of the Band-Aid song. Did you, like me, buy it, support it? Do you think it's right that they're bringing it out again, 40s on? Or are you sharing the view of, what's he called, that bloke? Ed Sheeran, who thinks the language reeks of a bit of colonialism? Let us know. Visit gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's the headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Andrew, thank you very much. The top story, Storm Bert is bringing further widespread disruption with public transport affected after devastating flooding over the weekend. Great Western Railway says it's suspended services on all key routes due to flooding and fallen trees. There are still hundreds of flood alerts in place and a major incident declared in South Wales. Hundreds of homes were left underwater. Roads were turned into rivers and winds of up to 82 miles per hour were recorded across parts of the UK. A new yellow warning has now been issued in Scotland. The Met Office warns of heavy rain in northern parts, with the warning to last until midnight tonight. Over 300 flights have been cancelled so far, and it's only the second storm of the season. In other news, bar staff will be trained to deal with incidents of drink spiking under government plans to tackle violence against women and girls. Number 10 announced that workers in the nighttime economy will be instructed on how to spot and prevent cases, as well as help collect evidence under a new pilot programme to be rolled out from next month. The plan is for up to 10,000 bar staff across the country to be trained by spring next year. Further details are being discussed at a meeting in Downing Street between the Prime Minister and Chief Constables, transport bosses and industry executives. Sir Keir Starmer has reiterated plans for spiking to become a specific offence, as he hopes a change will give people the confidence to come forward. London's Metropolitan Police said reports of spiking increased by 13% last year. In a message to the government, the Confederation of British Industry Chiefs says ministers must work closer with businesses in future after the shock of the budget tax hikes. The CBI's annual conference is taking place today as businesses unite to warn Labour their tax rises will stunt growth. Ray Newton-Smith added that firms were caught off guard by the hike in national insurance contributions in the Chancellor's budget. Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary Helen Whately told GB News this morning that working people are worse off due to Labour's political choices.
They chose to put up public sector pay, put up the pay deals with the unions above inflation without requiring any productivity reforms. That was a choice they made. They're choosing to throw money into a British energy company. They're choosing to do those things to spend money, and that's why they have put up taxes. So they shouldn't blame us for the political choices that they are making. They talked about growth in the run-up to the election, but actually they're doing the opposite. And I say I'm talking to businesses who are absolutely distraught. How are they going to survive 5 years of a government behaving like this? Is it this government is incompetent, or is it that they hate business?
The father of a former British soldier has expressed his complete shock to hear that his son had been captured. In a video circulating online, a man dressed in military clothing identifies himself as 22-year-old James Scott Rees-Anderson and says he formerly served in the British Army. He's dressed in that combat clothing and speaks with an English accent while appearing to have his hands tied. Russian state news agency TASS quotes a military source saying that what they call a UK mercenary had been taken prisoner in the Kursk area of Russia, part of which Ukraine has held since launching a surprise offensive in August. The Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster will say today that the UK is in a new AI arms race with countries like Russia and North Korea. Pat McFadden will be speaking at the NATO Cyber Defence Conference at Lancaster House, warning the UK and its allies that cyber war is now a daily reality. Mr McFadden will announce a new laboratory for AI security research. The intervention comes amid a dramatic escalation in tensions between Russia and the West, with Vladimir Putin lowering Moscow's threshold for the use of nuclear weapons and suggesting the Ukraine war is becoming a global conflict. On Thursday, Moscow used a new ballistic missile in Ukraine, which Vladimir Putin said was in response to the UK and US allowing missiles they've supplied to be used to strike targets in Russia. And MPs in favour of legalising assisted dying in the UK say that the bill has enough support to pass in the Commons. The Telegraph newspaper reports that a cross-party group backing the bill, put forward by Labour MP Kim Leadbeater, believes it will pass if all MPs who have pledged their support attend that vote. Now, this comes as the Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood made a strongly worded intervention in the debate, saying the state should never offer death as a service. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer's declined to say whether he will back the bill, arguing that he doesn't want to pressure MPs. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More from me in half an hour.
Hello. Hello.
I did tell you to go, but I was panicking because you were drinking
I'm drinking me tea, but not eating me digestives. I haven't got any.
No, you haven't provided me with biscuits today.
Not today.
You do usually, Beth.
Your body is a temple.
I am trying to be good, to be fair, so I don't blame you. Welcome to Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom with Andrew Pearce and Ellie Costello.
You've got lots of views, and a lot of them are very excited by the election because I made the point. We're already over 2 million. It'll be
petition, yeah.
4 million by the end of the week, in my view. There's more chance of hell freezing over than this government agreeing to a general election.
Yes,
because they don't have to.
They don't have to, exactly. Susanna says, if the petition gets to 9 million, surely Labour then has no mandate to govern. This would push them out.
Why 9 million?
I don't know why 9 million.
Is that how many votes they got in the last election? I'm going to quickly check how many votes they got.
I've got that written down somewhere. Yes, 9 million.
Yeah.
700,000 is what they got at the general election. So, yes, Susanna, you may have a point there. Pete says Starmer will be asked about the election and he will just say no, and that will be the end of that debate. Lorna says, I think the petition needs to be to change the first-past-the-post vote system. I think lots of people would agree with you there, Lorna. Pat says Starmer is a lawyer. He's not an experienced politician. How would he possibly know the consequences of his actions? And Norman says, I'm getting the feeling that the more everyone says this petition doesn't mean anything, the more that people are voting. And just one on Band-Aid as well, from Karen Stewart on Twitter, who says, on Band-Aid 40, tell these youngsters, instead of pulling apart wonderful events like Band-Aid 40, they can do their own. I dare them to try, and then we'll critique their efforts.
That's a very good message, actually. I quite agree with that. Who is it, this one who's complained?
Ed Sheeran.
Who's hugely popular.
Yes.
Great power. And great enabling power.
One of the biggest pop stars in this country.
Yeah, so he could put together his own group, good luck with that, and see if it sells as many records and raises as much money.
Yeah.
I doubt it would.
150 million has been raised over the last 4 decades, but some critics say now that it's outdated and a toxic narrative for Africa. Let us know what you think. gbnews.com/you'll say.
Now, Storm Bert, it's ravaged the country this weekend. 5 deaths suspected to have been caused by the chaos.
Yes, with 200 flood alerts still in place and a major incident declared in South Wales, it doesn't seem to be ending just yet.
More than 300 flights have been cancelled, and it is still only the second storm of the season, and we're not even in December.
No, we're not. And actually 5 more storms are expected before Christmas, would you believe? So that's just in the next few weeks alone. Well, we're now joined by GB News reporter Tony Maguire, who joins us now from Ayrshire in Scotland. Good to see you, Tony. How's it looking there this morning?
a lot worse now that I know that there's 5 more storms coming before Christmas, Ellie. But certainly the conditions here, as expected, have been pretty grim this morning. We've had extremely high winds, which has of course forced the ferries here that come into our Ardrossan Harbour, one of the 2 ports which services the Isle of Arran, have been cancelled for another day. Now, we know that there's going to be a review here at Ardrossan as to whether sailings will resume after 6 o'clock tonight. But certainly you do have to feel for the islanders who are now essentially on their 3rd day of extreme weather affecting sailings. Now, this is a story which has been repeated up and down the coast. And indeed on Saturday, we had quite an extraordinary level of snow dumped, especially around the central belt of Scotland and here in Ayrshire, which is of course just on the very west coast of Scotland. Now, that very quickly thawed, and that was joined, the groundwater was all joined by an extremely heavy storm of rain, and that rain has persisted continuously all the way through, which has led to flooding in some areas. Now, the Scottish Environmental Protection Agency, SEPA, they issued 4 flood warnings, and as we had just heard there is now an additional yellow weather warning for the very north of Scotland, from Ullapool right down through the Highlands, and that is due to suspected flooding, and that is in place until much later this evening. But indeed, Scotland, and like the rest of the UK, has suffered from immense disruption, not just the ferries from here and from down in Troon that are servicing Arran. We also saw the Largs to Cumbria ferry, the only ferry which services that little island in the Firth of Clyde. But we are hearing now that those services may well resume, although they are expected to be continued disruption over the day. Similarly, up in Oban, and it's worth pointing out that these communities are essentially, this is their lifeline, these ferries, for hundreds and hundreds, in fact, thousands of people up and down the Western Isles. And of course, Arran in particular, well, it was promised a ferry around 8 years ago, and that Glen Sannox should have been delivered 6 years ago. And in fact, that has only been delivered to Caledonian McBray, the ferry operator here, last week, and is expected to go into service in January 2025. So, you know, if we put those 5 storms that are coming up between now and Christmas, then it's going to be a long, hard winter for the people that live in the islands and the Western Isles.
Tony, we were talking to correspondents in Wales, and there's a lot of anger that they feel, a lot of Welsh people feel that they weren't sufficiently warned. There should have been more, maybe a red warning or at least an amber warning, that people weren't prepared for the sheer scale of the deluge. I think 4 months' rain in one day. Is that a similar complaint in Scotland?
Yes, indeed, it is very much. I mean, I think that people here, again, are extremely angered that there weren't more amber warnings specifically. Now, interestingly, the whole of Scotland was essentially covered by yellow warnings on Saturday, but for that ice and for that snow, it was the rain and the flood warnings that a lot of people feel came too late. However, just to say that the people in these islands, unfortunately, this has now become a regular occurrence, and this is a way of life, stocking up, preparing for the worst as these cold winter months draw in.
All right, that's Tony Maguire up in the way in the north of Scotland. Thank you, Tony. You're doing a sterling job up there, and it's looking pretty bleak, isn't it?
It certainly is.
And getting bleaker.
It certainly is. But Tony, just to say, is an absolute superstar. You may have noticed there he's actually holding his phone on a selfie stick because his camera, it's so windy up there today, the camera has already fallen over, smashed into pieces. So he is keeping calm, carrying on.
The show must go on.
The show must go on, and he's doing it all off his phone now. So thank you, Tony, for continuing to broadcast for us, despite the conditions up there. He is a star, isn't he?
He really is. I've worked with him a few times. It's got a terrific night.
And you were saying he's very hard-working.
Really hard-working. And he carries all this equipment and say, can I help? No, he carries it. He's great.
Yeah, good on him.
Now, let's talk about the former Metropolitan Police Commissioner, Lord... I've interviewed him.
I've got him here.
Hogan Howe.
Hogan Howe.
Lord Hogan Howe. He wants ministers to review the use of so-called non-crime hate incidents.
Well, it comes as a report by the Policy Exchange think tank finds that up to 60,000 hours of police time is taken up by these incidents each and every year.
In other words, wasted time. They're not crime, so why are they investigating it? We're saying, isn't it time to start policing the streets and not tweets?
Well, let's talk to former Scotland Yard Detective Inspector Hamish Brown, MBE. Good to see you this morning, Hamish. I mean, Lord Hogan Howe has a point on this, doesn't he? 60,000 hours of police time spent on something that isn't a crime.
Absolutely, and he's not alone in that thinking, I can assure you. Sir Keir Starmer said just a few days ago, it's about time the police really concentrated on real crime, what's going on. And I can't agree with that too strongly, really. It's a matter of using common sense, I think, with this. And as I understand it, these non-crimes, there are two objects to it. One is to prevent crime taking place, and the other is to collect criminal intelligence. And if we feel that some racial incident, for example, is imminent, I could see that taking place. But having said that, this seems a gross waste of time. Police haven't kept their eye on the ball, and it's important to get on with what the public wants. That is burglaries down my street, females being attacked, as well as males as well, and all the other host of crimes we have. That's what the police are about, dealing with crime, not thought crime.
Hamish, there are so many of these infuriating incidents the police have looked into, including one. A vicar was interviewed because he'd said being gay is a sin. Well, if you look at the Bible, that's what it says. I speak as a gay man. I would not want a police officer or two to go and visit a vicar if he's expressed the view that being gay is illegal. What a complete and total waste of time.
Yes, I agree, and this is where the common sense comes into it, when the police should be able to draw a line somewhere. Now, I understand that some groups or people should be protected, and if we look to the European Court of Human Rights, Article 10 talks about freedom of expression, also no right to free speech, Article 11, freedom of assembly, freedom of movement, in other words. Yeah, absolutely right, but they both come with the same caveat. You can't do that unless you're going to offend someone else and interfere with their human rights. So there is a balancing object there, I suppose. But I just wonder, as I say, the police have taken their eye off the ball. There's been too much pressure on them by certain groups. To concentrate on this nonsense, really. It is a real crime. And your lovely little comment just now about tweets and streets, I was going to finish up on that. So you've stolen my thunder, I'm afraid. But yeah, that's what it's about. It's about the streets. It's about the burglaries, the attacks, drug taking, a host of all sorts of things. And they haven't got time to spend doing this nonsense. It's a matter of prioritising their responsibilities, their manpower, and act accordingly. So please keep an eye on the ball and let the police go forward and deal with what the public want them to deal with.
Hamish, do we do away with non-crime hate incidents altogether, or do we change the guidance? Because they are a useful tool when it comes to things like preventing terrorism. I mean, in terms of the Prevent programme, we know, don't we, that the likes of Al-Qaeda, on something like X, they are using social media to promote their ideology, to recruit for these types of groups. I mean, in that sense, it is a useful tool. It is helpful to have these things.
Absolutely, and the police have every facility, IT facility, to record criminal intelligence. And in fact, they encourage people to ring in. There are all sorts of numbers, there's Crime Stoppers, all sorts of things where people can contact the police. And in fact, on the terrorism side, there used to be a campaign saying it might be nothing, because that's what the public say. Well, it might be nothing. Well, let the police decide. Yes, come forward with that information, but it doesn't mean it has to be investigated as a crime. It is there to prevent, and it is there as criminal intelligence, and that's where it should remain.
Very well said. Very well said. You should be Metropolitan Police Commissioner. Promoting him. Lovely to talk to you.
Detective Inspector Hamish Brown, MBE. Thank you very much indeed.
It's just such a infuriating. And my big bugbear as well, it gives the police a bad name, and it's only the police doing what they're being told to do by their bosses.
Yes, well, I think there's a lot of confusion in the ranks, and there was a report out today, which we didn't even get to touch upon, but the approach is being summed up as, if in doubt, just record it.
Yeah, that's
And that's
right.
why we're getting so many
Yeah,
recordings. And people essentially just with hurt feelings, which
Oh,
isn't the same as a crime.
Oh, no. Well, the whole point about a hate crime is if you think it's a hate crime, I've been subjected to hate, it's recorded as a hate crime.
Yes, exactly.
It's all madness.
I know. Well, let us know what you think at home.
Human rights. Human rights.
Say. Up next, we're going to be going through the top stories of the day with Matthew Torbett and Steve Baker. That's next.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
After the Hollywood ending that Wrexham Football Club have got, can Chorley FC benefit from a bit of the old celebrity magic dust?
I can't see why not. The guys have been down a few times now, and when they do come down, obviously they're bringing that with them. A little town like Chorley doesn't see much of the charts and big stars, so it's really nice to see them, and we always welcome them when they do come down.
And Mark, give us a flavour of the level of football. I understand you're in the National League North, right? That's 6 rungs down from the top flight. I mean, you're only just down the road from Manchester City, right? But, I mean, give us a flavour of the two different worlds between your club and Man City.
Our players are all part-timers. So we've got kind of fitness coaches, we've got teachers, we've got all kinds of players who have full-time jobs alongside playing. Our average crowd is probably a tenth of what you get at Man City, probably even less than that. We get about 1,500 on a home game. The thing is, we know where we are and we understand where we are, and we are a real community club. Tonight, I'm ready now. I'm off to Marine, so off over to Merseyside. Playing the likes of Liverpool and Everton over on Merseyside would be kind of a dream come true. But we know where we are. We would just love to get to the Football League. So teams like Salford, Stockport County were in our division a couple of years ago, all flying now in the Football League. We just want to do the same. We sat down with the board last year and they told us the vision for the future, and that vision most definitely is that we want to be a Football League club. When we went to the Premier League, I know the boys have been saying that they 30 years we'll be in the Premier League and winning it. Well, let's hope we are, and let's hope I'm still around to see that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It is 11:23. Welcome back. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom with Andrew Pearce and me, Ellie Costello.
We've got the panel back. Former Minister Steve Baker and former Labour advisor Matthew Torbett. Gentlemen, we're going to talk about free speech. Yes?
Marvellous.
No?
Yes, happy to.
What's the point? Where are we? I've lost the thread here. Steve, help me.
I just put out a long article on this, that we've completely lost the plot with people having a knock on the door over non-crime hate incidents. It's one thing for the police to record things for the purpose of intelligence. It's another when they then release them when somebody inquires after whether a background check or whatever. But what happened to Alison Pearson is absolutely wrong, complete waste of police time. For it to take place, getting on for a year after the tweet. And it's really damaging the reputation.
2 coppers knocking on her door.
I mean, they have got better things to be doing. Yeah. I mean, it's outrageous. But it originates with the National Police Chief Council coming up with their own rules for what they should do. And I really think we've got to the point where It's one thing not to have a national police force to protect freedom. That's what Peel believed. So when he nationalised policing, he didn't want a single national police force. The problem we've now got is we've effectively got a single national set of rules through the Police Chiefs Council, and that's got to change because ministers have lost control of the way police officers go about their duty.
But where did this ludicrous propose? Where did it come from? See, which Home was it? A Justice Secretary, a Home Secretary, or did it?
It's the police chiefs working out how to deal with.
And then the government just embraced it, or just turned a blind eye.
So there's a concept of the operational independence of police officers, right?
Sure, get
and the point of that is so that ministers and MPs can't direct the police against their opponents. But it's now escaped all reason. So the police now come up with their own policies for how to go about policing. And really, that is the business of ministers. And unfortunately, Operation Independence has escaped all reason. And that's really, I think, where it originates. Is the police get to make their own mind up about what priority to give to knocking on doors over tweets, and it's gone crazy.
Matthew, do you think that non-crime hate incidents need to be done away with entirely, or do you think the guidance needs to change around them? Because when 60,000 police hours are used, imagine the amount of violent crime that could be solved in that time.
No, and that then feeds into the idea of a two-tier justice system of what's being policed and what isn't, or what is given a priority. I don't know about them being scrapped altogether. I think my understanding is the origins came post Stephen Lawrence, and the police wanted a way that crimes could be logged. That they might not be crimes, but stuff that could be looked into in case of incitement.
Lead to serious crime.
Yes, exactly, and there is a difference. But I think the problem is the law is outdated, so I don't think it's necessarily this element of the law. It's the idea of that you can be prosecuted for something being grossly offensive, and to me that's an opinion, and I don't know how you can charge people depending on whether the CPS his opinion is something is grossly offensive. I was just saying to Steve in the green room, society changes its mind all the time about what is and isn't offensive. And I used the example of things like Little Britain. We all laughed at things like Little Britain 20 years ago, and it was quite funny. And you look back at it now and you cringe a bit and go, oh, actually, I don't know if that's quite appropriate. Therefore, the law needs to probably shift with society and where it is currently sat at the time, I would say.
The threshold at the moment for what people are offended by, though, is very low.
No, it is. And we joked about this the other week. If someone wanted to have a go at the way I looked, my beard, my hair, somebody at home could...
Which we did.
You did, yeah. Nobody was a fan. It was great. But somebody at home could complain. Thank you, Steve. I've got one fan on the panel today. But somebody at home could complain about that and say they were offended on my behalf, which doesn't seem right at all.
But a hate crime is a hate crime, and if someone says to the police, I'm the victim of a hate crime because they said something abuse about the way I look, my gender, my sexuality, that's mad.
It is mad because it's completely arbitrary. It allows people to unjustly persecute one another. What amounts, if not false allegations, then something which is very akin to it. I do think it's important to say that all the police officers I've ever met are there to fight crime, serious crimes. They are fed up with this stuff that deters them from fighting crime. They don't want to have to be at somebody's bedside over mental health issues. That should be somebody else's duty. Police officers are as frustrated with this stuff as the rest of us, but somehow this system has become mad. But it's not the fault of the rank-and-file police officers.
No, and we should remember that because they get a bad press and they do a good job.
They do,
and they're following orders.
Now. They all look very young.
They do,
and they're idealistic, and they're in policing to look after
some point, Matthew Talbot.
Steve, let's stay with you, shall we, and look at the Times. It's on the front page today. The Environment Minister, Steve Reed, was only told of plans to impose inheritance tax on farms 24 hours before the budget.
Yeah, I wish I could tell you I was surprised. I mean, it is completely mad, but it's absolutely normal. The Treasury does this all the time. It just rides roughshods over secretaries of state. And it's one of the most frustrating things about being a minister. And, it arises from prime ministers not gripping what they're doing. They allow the civil service to intermediate between ministers, to get between ministers, instead of just talking to them. But really, Keir Starmer should have picked up the phone to his environment minister and said, we're thinking of taxing farms. What's your opinion?
It is extraordinary.
Yeah, but the fact within government.
The biggest countryside march for 20 years. There's going to be more. And now I see Dan Needle, who's the guy that BBC Verify had used, who'd embraced what the government was saying, although he did get hectares mixed up with acres, which is quite fundamental, I'd have thought.
It's a big deal, yeah.
I gather he's now saying, actually, in hindsight, the threshold for bringing in this inheritance tax It shouldn't be at 1 million, it should be closer to 20 million. That's a big flipping difference.
Well, it's a little bit of a big difference, yeah. And I think what Dan Needle had also said, which I think would potentially win Labour some friends back in the rural communities and the constituencies, many of which they've won for the first time ever, would be to narrow the scope of what you would pay in inheritance tax, in the sense of it would only be done if you were to sell off the farm, and therefore you're taxed on that as opposed to across the board. Which I think would maybe be sensible, and I think the public don't mind if governments change their minds. I think Boris did a lot of this sort of stuff during COVID, and when you worked within it, you'd probably be pulling your hair out. I'm surprised Steve's got any left at times, the way that they work.
Well, I was notorious for rebelling.
Quite. But I think people don't mind if the right thing is done, even if it's eventually.
But on this budget thing, it's always been the case. But is this because Treasury number 10 don't trust Secretaries of State if they're brought in the loop of what's going to happen in their department to leak it?
Well, yeah. So politics is not like business. People will leak things and they will squirm around trying to get their way. But this is fundamentally the challenge of leadership which any Prime Minister faces. They've got to find a way to have their team close to them. And it is possible to engender trust and earn authority every day, but it requires an exceptionally high standard of leadership, which we rarely see. But, personally, I'd love to get amongst it, but you've got to be at that level to do it.
It's all about the handling of this from the very beginning, though, isn't it? Because Steve Reed's been completely blindsided. He stood in front of the farmers a year ago saying there are going to be no changes to APR. And now he's the same man who has to face these farmers who are out on our streets.
And crucially, it's not the problem of the people who came up with the policy. They just dump it on him, and he gets the choice to resign or not. And it's no way to govern a country.
And people make the point that he's an urban MP, he's a former leader of Lambeth Council, he's a London MP, he doesn't know his countryside from his elbow, and he's got to go out and defend it in his Lord Alley £420 Welling.
No, quite. And I think, he's been a very good boy and a good cabinet minister by going along with it and saying, no, I'm fully in support of it and all is well and good, so he will probably save himself in any sort of reshuffle, but ultimately he'll be the one that's the fall guy.
He's squirming inwardly, isn't he?
Yeah, and I think he's sort of got to, because the idea that number 10 maybe hasn't picked up the phone, Keir Starmer's always said he's absolutely in lockstep with Rachel Reeves. He's probably gone along with this,
So he has. We've run out of time,
Steve,
chaps.
we're out of time. Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure, you two.
This morning. Now it's time for our poll of the day, and today we're asking, do you want another general election now? That petition online now has more than 2 million signatures. So let us know what you think in our
I haven't signed it. I promise you, I've not signed it. Not once, twice, not even half a dozen times.
We'll bring you the live results throughout the day, so make sure you stay tuned. And the final results will be announced later in Martin Daubney's show.
For all our latest polls, news and how to vote, you just go to gbnews.com/poll. But now we're going to get the headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Andrew, thank you. The top stories this hour. Storm Bert is bringing further widespread disruption with public transport affected after devastating flooding over the weekend. Great Western Railway says it suspended services on all key routes due to flooding and fallen trees. There are still hundreds of flood alerts in place and a major incident declared in South Wales. Hundreds of homes were left underwater, roads were turned into rivers, and winds of up to 82 miles per hour were recorded across parts of the UK. A new yellow warning's been issued in Scotland. The Met Office warns of heavy rain in northern parts, with the warning to last until midnight tonight. Over 300 flights have been cancelled so far, and it's only the second storm of the season. Bar staff will be trained to deal with incidents of drink spiking under government plans to tackle violence against women and girls. Number 10 announced that workers in the nighttime economy will be instructed on how to spot and prevent cases, as well as help collect evidence under a new pilot programme to be rolled out from December. The plan is for up to 10,000 bar staff across the country to be trained by spring next year. Further details have been discussed at a meeting in Downing Street between the Prime Minister and Chief Constables, transport bosses and industry executives. Sir Keir Starmer has reiterated plans for spiking to become a specific offence, with hopes it'll give people the confidence to come forward. He's told broadcasters this morning that the number of reported incidents is way below the number of cases. London's Metropolitan Police said reports of spiking increased by 13% last year. In a message to the government, the Confederation of British Industry Chief says ministers must work closer with businesses in future after the shock of the budget tax hikes. The CBI's annual conference is taking place today as businesses unite to warn Labour that their tax rises will stunt growth. Ray Newton-Smith added that firms were caught off guard by the hike in national insurance contributions in the Chancellor's budget. And a manhunt has been launched after an 8-year-old girl and a man were seriously injured in a shooting in West London yesterday. The Metropolitan Police says the child, who's now in a stable condition, and a 34-year-old man who was also injured were taken to hospital after being shot in Southern Row in Ladbroke Grove just after 5:30 yesterday afternoon. A 32-year-old woman was also taken to hospital as a precaution but was not hurt. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's another windy day on offer for many of us today, with sunny spells and showers, these merging into longer spells of rain at times too, and it is going to be feeling chilly today. We've got Storm Bert just to the north of the country, which brought the impacts over the weekend, still bringing in some rain and some windy weather, particularly across northern areas. But across the south and southeast, it's generally going to be a much brighter day if you compare it to the weekend. Still plenty of showers across the country, though, particularly in the west around coasts, though some moving inland at times, and these merging into longer spells of rain across Scotland too. Still with those blustery winds continuing. Temperatures round about average for the time of year, but still feeling chilly across the far northeast of Scotland. Now, heading into this evening, we are still going to see plenty of those showers, as I say, merging into longer spells of rain at times across Scotland. Heavy at times, generally falling as rain, though we still could see some sleet and snow above high ground. Still plenty of blustery winds here too. Plenty of showers feeding in across Northern Ireland, northwest England too. Driest and brightest across the far eastern of parts of the country. Wales and southwest England also seeing plenty of showers move through this evening. But generally there are going to be some clear spells overnight, particularly across the Midlands and southeast England, and with winds lightening off, we could even see some fog develop overnight. But there are still plenty of blustery showers feeding in around western areas and northwestern coasts of Northern Ireland and Scotland. So overnight, under those clear spells, it is still going to be a chilly night on offer, but generally winds easing away with clearer skies. Could even see a little bit of frost by the time we reach the morning. Now, as we head into Tuesday, once again, a brighter day overall for many of us. There are still a few showers around at times around Northern Ireland, northwestern England, still around coasts of Scotland. But elsewhere, many places should see lots of dry weather, plenty of sunny spells, and with average temperatures, should feel rather pleasant for the time of year. Bye for now.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 11:38. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and me, Ellie Costello.
Tom and Miriam are here. Good afternoon.
Good
Britain
afternoon.
is coming up. What do you think?
You said good afternoon, then you realised it's actually...
It's still the morning.
It's still 11:40. You know, in 20 minutes we'll be gracing television screens, sitting where
And we'll be hanging on every word.
Absolutely.
As we always
Good
are.
afternoon, Britain. We've got the man who started that general election petition on the show, Michael Westwood.
He's a hero.
He hasn't been involved in politics before.
It makes him even more interesting.
And he's going to be such an interesting guy to speak to. But this petition, I've been watching it all morning. It's astonishing. 2 million 42,456 signatures at this moment in time. But
and
you know
counting.
What? And counting it. I just refreshed it every time.
I had it on my computer yesterday. I was watching, and I punched the air and it hit 1 million.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. I did. I was so pleased.
I mean, it is...
Buyer's remorse, big time out there.
That's true, but in a way, it's just a function of the fact that so few people did vote for Labour.
That's right.
It's just that they got a huge majority because of our particular electoral system.
Yeah, because the Tory parliamentary party, which you were part of, Miriam, was so hopeless.
Well, indeed, and I remember so many conversations on the doorsteps when I was standing for election, and people would say, we don't want a Labour government, we know they'll be dreadful, but we hate you so much, we're not going to vote for you. So, in a way, it's no surprise. I'm not saying people shouldn't be angry, of course they should, but it's no surprise what's happening, is it?
There was no love for Starmer, was there?
Let's have some context here.
Yeah.
2 million people signing this petition. More than 2 million people voted for the Lib Dems.
Indeed.
4 million people voted for a Ford.
Yeah.
7 million people voted for the Tories. 9 million people voted for Labour. I mean, we're still talking about a small section of the wider electorate, but a motivated one, and that's why it matters.
If this, as one of our people who texted in this morning said, if this rattles on to 9 million, wow.
Indeed, but I mean, you know, speaking as a boring ex-politician, you know, our political system is incredibly stable compared to so many countries in the rest of the world. And you might not like what's going on right now, but actually the fact that we do have general elections regularly every 5 years with a peaceful handover of power, that is the way it should be. And if there was... I mean, I know, you know, this was started as a protest and probably lots of people who've signed it are not expecting a general election.
No.
It is to make their voices heard, which I completely understand. But we actually don't want there to be a general election every time a government is unpopular because it would be chaos.
Yeah, but also we have got a stable system, but by God, the Tories did their best to make it unstable, changing leader, it seemed, every other 5 minutes,
and
didn't
there are huge problems with
6 leaders in, what was it, 6 years or 7 years?
But here's where perhaps there's a criticism to be made of this petition, which is that petitions can be very useful in politics in terms of organising groups, in terms of collecting data. And we know that elections are driven on data. You want to know who your foot soldiers are, where your voters are. All of the data from this petition is being kept by parliament.uk.
Yeah.
So the person who started the petition can't have a list of people who signed it. No one can have a list of people who signed it. Now, if this petition was run by a campaign group, for example, can you imagine the power of 2 million emails? Can you imagine the power of 2 million foot soldiers knocking on doors, delivering leaflets? That changes an election. But despite the power and the numbers behind this petition, it's all lost because it's not been run privately, because it's been run through the Parliament website. Maybe that's one of the reasons people feel comfortable signing it. But petitions can be useful in politics if then the data is put to a cause. I mean, there are local elections on the 1st of May, but none of these people are going to get emails about it. None of these people are going to be having leaflets to hand out or whatever else it might be. It's sort of all been lost, and perhaps that's a missed opportunity as part of this this petition.
Well, perhaps I should listen to your interview with him with great interest. Well done.
Oh, we should also mention Angela Merkel's got a book out. And apparently she did nothing wrong.
Oh, really?
Millions of refugees, dependent on Russia for oil and gas, closing down nuclear power stations, all the rest of it. Apparently it was all brilliant decisions.
Her halo, it's not just slipped, it's shattered into tiny pieces.
Well,
terrible,
we're speaking to
terrible,
a German
terrible
journalist
woman.
about that.
Will you be buying the book?
No, I won't be buying the book. Her reputation is shattered.
Thank you very much. That's all coming up at midday. Lots to get your teeth into from midday.
Terrible woman.
All that and more. Up next, MPs backing the assisted dying bill claim they have enough support for it to pass. But could a split in the Cabinet cause chaos? Is it already causing chaos?
It is causing chaos, it is.
This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Serving some of the most talked about food in Chelsea, executive head chef of Number 50 Cheney, Ian Smith, has created a range of menus with a hint of the homeland, using the finest British ingredients sourced by trusted suppliers. Ian Smith was head chef at Jason Atherton's Social Eating House and spent time in the kitchens of the Galvin brothers. Ian joins me now to tell more of the story. Tell me about number 50 Cheney.
Yes, so we are a beautiful restaurant down in the corner of Chelsea on the Embankment with an amazing team. And we are really pride ourselves on, being an affordable luxury that people, really are wanting to return to week in, week out.
What's the view from your restaurant?
Well, you can see the Embankment, the Thames, and Albert Bridge, which is very nice.
Very
it's actually lit up. Very romantic.
And tell me a little bit about your philosophy. I was talking there about having a touch of the homeland, British food, seasonal food.
Yes. Yeah, I think, for me, great cooking is, with simplicity on finest ingredients, cooked with simplicity, and ultimately, there to be enjoyed through... Yeah, sorry.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was going to say, it starts as a young person's business. You went into it very young, didn't you? 15?
Yes. Yeah, so I was 15. I sat in my parents' bedroom, called the Ritz, the Dorchester and Claridge's, and very luckily, a man on the end of the phone, 21 years ago, sent me on to a college course called the Specialised Chef Scholarship. 3 days later, I had a Ritz stamp letter through the post, and off me and my parents went, and luckily I got on the course.
And how old were you when you got your first responsibility, would you say?
I think the biggest responsibility in my career is today. Leading number 50 Cheney.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Isabel Webster. Thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. Now, the government is reportedly split.
No, it is split.
The Cabinet is split, certainly,
It is.
over the assisted dying bill ahead of its vote in Parliament on Friday, this afternoon.
Yes, there's been a string of senior Labour figures coming out against the motion, including former Prime Minister Gordon Brown, the Health Secretary Wes Streeting, and, crucially, the Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood, because she'll be a key figure. And I think the Education Secretary... No, I think she's in favour, Bridget Phillipson.
Yeah, Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson and Science Secretary Peter Kyle.
They're also against?
Also against, yes. But
because this is a free vote, of course.
Of course it is, yeah, because it's a vote on conscience, isn't it? But while the government may be split on the issue, MPs sponsoring the bill are confident that there is now enough support for it to pass through.
Well, let's talk now to the chairman of the Religious Alliance for Dignity and Dying, who is Rabbi Jonathan Romain. Rabbi, good morning to you.
Good morning. And I hear you say that the Cabinet's split, but I don't think the country is split. I mean, every poll, as I'm sure you know, shows, what is it, over 65%, up to 70% of people actually want it. And that, by the way, goes for people of faith. Yes, there are some religious objections, but the vast majority of people of faith, and we're talking about 66%, actually do want it. So the country's heading in the same direction, even if some of the MPs are a bit divided.
But when you say about religious divide, Rabbi, we've had the Archbishop of Canterbury, Welby, I appreciate he's in a rather somewhat discredited position at the moment, but the leader of the Roman Catholic Church in England and Wales, the chief rabbi, have all signed a letter opposing the assisted dying bill. And I know in my Catholic church they refer to it as the suicide bill.
Yes, that's right. And there certainly are religious people against, but they represent a religious view, not necessarily the religious. And I'm chair of the Religious Alliance because there are a lot of people, not just lay people, but vicars, priests, imams, rabbis, who are in favour, not in the sense that we want to give people options, because, we all want to have as good a life as possible. Why should we not have as good a death as possible? And to be honest, we're front line. We're the people who go around hospices, hospitals, and see people in their last moments or last week suffering. And it's just so obvious that, yes, palliative care can help a lot of people. And that's great. That's wonderful. But it also can't help everybody. And in fact, there was a parliamentary select committee only concluded in July, after 18 months of research, that palliative care cannot help everybody. So we need to give people options. That's what it's all about. Of course, the word compassion. If you see someone suffering suffering, you try and help. And if they want you to help and they want to say, thank you, God, it's been a great life, but I want to let go, in whose interest, let me ask you this, in whose interest are we keeping them alive against their will?
Well, MPs sponsoring the bill are confident that they have enough support. And as you alluded to earlier, a YouGov poll putting support amongst the public for this at 73%. I mean, we've come a long way since 2015, when this was last voted on in Parliament. It overwhelmingly rejected at the time. What do you think the cultural shift has been? Do you think it's been the likes of Esther Rantzen and her campaign?
Yes, I think the more we've talked about it, the more we've realised that, yes, of course, we want to give everybody every support and we all want to carry on to our last breath. But we're as I think one of you alluded to earlier, medicine is wonderful. It's keeping us alive longer, but not necessarily better. Of course, there are these horrible diseases, motor neuron, Parkinson's, cancer, where you really have a very awful end. And we'd all love to die in our bed, surrounded by family and the pet dog, but it doesn't work out that way. And this is about reality. And the people who are saying, oh, it's worried about this and worried about that, they're ignoring the current crisis, which is a lot of people dying in pain. And we need to help them. It isn't a theory. And of course, one of the things that has persuaded me is not just seeing so many people dying in pain, but the realization that, for instance, in Oregon, they've had exactly this system for about 25, actually now 27 years. In other words, we're not taking a leap into the dark. We've got 25 years, quarter of a century's worth of experience, medical research, records, regulation. And we know it's safe, and we know it works well. So why on earth are we rejecting this option when it's there on a plate for us to opt for?
I heard Tanni Gray-Thompson, Rabbi, you'll know who she is, one of our most successful paraplegic Olympians, many gold medals, talking about her fear about this is the fear of subtle coercion. That people will feel coerced into agreeing to it. They'll feel they're a burden. She said she's already coming across people saying, well, am I a burden on my children? And I appreciate that the law says you can only be, you've got to be terminal with 6 months to live. But how do you ensure that someone isn't going to be coerced into doing this? Is there any safeguard that can ensure that?
Well, as I think Kim Leadbeater, the sponsor of the bill, has said, this is the most robust bill there's ever been in Britain, or in the world for that matter, with lots of regulations, lots of safety nets and health checks. You have to be seen by 2 doctors, spaced apart, independent doctors. It then has to be overseen by a judge. And there's a 14-year prison sentence. That's a new thing. 14-year prison sentence for anyone who gives a hint of coercion. This is going to be as safe and as good as possible. And of course, the reality is that the strongest thing within each one of us is our life force. Most of us want to carry on to the very last moment. And therefore, I've got no problem, no fears about the future. In fact, what happens in other places where they do have it is if there is coercion, it's relatives saying to the sick person, don't do it. It's more the other way. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. And of course, there's going to be a review of this in 5 years. So if it isn't going to work, well, then we've got a chance to reassess it. And I think it's really important for MPs who are not sure and who may have questions, doubts, to vote for a second reading, because a second reading won't pass the law. All it will do is send it to the committee stage, where they'll be dissecting it, analysing it, and making it as good a law as possible.
What do you make of this split in Cabinet over this vote? I mean, very interesting that Shabana Mahmood, who's Justice Secretary, and Wes Streeting, Health Secretary, both opposed to all of this, bearing in mind that it's those two people that will be imposing all of this. It will be their responsibility as Justice and Health Secretary.
Yes, but to give them credit, they've both said that if it does go through, they will respect the democratic process and they will enact it. But what is interesting about both of them is they're coming from a religious perspective. Shabana Mahmood is Muslim, Wes Streeting is observant Christian. And I find that a little bit difficult, to be honest. I almost think it's an abuse of faith, because by all means, let them say, let Shabana and Wes say, it's not for me, I wouldn't want it. That's fair enough. But for them to use their religion to impose on other people who may be of a different faith or no faith at all, that seems to me going a step too far. What I want to do is give people options to say, no, thank you, no way, or yes, please,
All right.
or...
Rabbi, we have to leave it there, I'm afraid. That's Rabbi Jonathan Romain. Well, that's it from us, from Britain's Newsroom. Up next, Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Miriam. It's been lovely being with Ellie.
Lovely to be with you.
Thank you. Bev's back with me tomorrow. And they've got a very busy afternoon ahead. All that and more from it.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's another windy day on offer for many of us today, with sunny spells and showers, these merging into longer spells of rain at times too, and it is going to be feeling chilly today. We've got Storm Bert just to the north of the country, which brought the impacts over the weekend, still bringing in some rain and some windy weather, particularly across northern areas. But across the south and southeast, it's generally going to be a much brighter day if you compare it to the weekend. Still plenty of showers across the country, though, particularly in the west around coasts, though some moving inland at times, and these merging into longer spells of rain across Scotland too. Still with those blustery winds continuing. Temperatures round about average for the time of year, but still feeling chilly across the far northeast of Scotland. Now, heading into this evening, we are still going to see plenty of those showers, as I say, merging into longer spells of rain at times across Scotland. Heavy at times, generally falling as rain, though we still could see some sleet and snow above high ground. Still plenty of blustery winds here too. Plenty of showers feeding in across Northern Ireland, northwest England too. Driest and brightest across the far eastern of parts of the country. Wales and southwest England also seeing plenty of showers move through this evening. But generally there are going to be some clear spells overnight, particularly across the Midlands and southeast England, and with winds lightening off, we could even see some fog develop overnight. But there are still plenty of blustery showers feeding in around western areas and northwestern coasts of Northern Ireland and Scotland. So overnight, under those clear spells, it is still going to be a chilly night on offer, but generally winds easing away with clearer skies. Could even see a little bit of frost by the time we reach the morning. Now, as we head into Tuesday, once again, a brighter day overall for many of us. There are still a few showers around at times around Northern Ireland, northwestern England, still around coasts of Scotland. But elsewhere, many places should see lots of dry weather, plenty of sunny spells, and with average temperatures, should feel rather pleasant for the time of year. Bye for now.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Oh my God. This is amazing.
I'm in shock. That is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
For your chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets and My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
To the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Monday, the 25th of November. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Miriam Cates. Now, Storm Bert leaves a trail of destruction with hundreds of weather warnings still in place. At least 5 deaths have been reported since the storm hit, and a major incident has been declared in South Wales.
Later today, the Confederation of British Industry are holding their inaugural conference. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, will tell business leaders she stands by her tax rises and points to what she describes as pro-growth policies from her government.
Sir Keir Starmer has convened a summit in Downing Street with police chiefs, transport bosses and industry leaders to coordinate action to crack down on violence against women and girls, including making the spiking of drinks into a new criminal offence.
And the Prime Minister has reacted to an online petition signed now by more than 2 million people, calling for a fresh general election. We'll reveal what he had to say and this hour as he braces for a humiliating Commons debate. Well, on that petition, it's one of the fastest growing that has ever befallen the petitions.parliament.uk website. And we're going to be speaking to the man who started that petition a little bit later this hour.
I wonder if he's very surprised at how rapidly it's taken off, because, of course, this is just a petition that can call for a debate in Parliament, which is just in Westminster Hall. It's not something that the government normally takes much notice of. But so I'm quite surprised Keir Starmer's actually commented.
Yes, I think it's because it's been so quick to sort of rise and shows a level of discontent, even though, of course, the numbers involved aren't enough to sort of overturn a general election by any means. It shows that there's some discontent out there.
Well, in a way, it's not really surprising because Labour do have this enormous majority on paper, but they received only about 1 in 5 of adult votes. So they were never popular with. So in a way, it's not, I'm not saying it's good, but it's not really surprising that they're unpopular this soon after the general election. But a long time to go, 4.5 years to the next one.
Absolutely, and people might be more distracted by the weather because, quite frankly, we have seen a lot of flooding, a huge amount of disruption across the country. We've been covering that this hour too, of course. Adam Cherry, our reporter, is in Pontypridd, and he will be showing us some of the